Time is currently 6:03 p.m., so we're starting 3 minutes late. I hope you forgive us for that. I do want to let everyone know before we start that this meeting is going to look a little different. Unfortunately, the manager is under the weather, so we will try our best to get through, and I'm sure we can all figure out what to do as we go through the agenda, but she will not be joining us tonight. First, let's start with the silent meditation and pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please?
Roll call, Chair Martin.
Present.
Vice Chair Perella.
Present.
Member Urbom is not here yet. Member Nickerson.
Here.
Member Lightfoot Ward is not here. Christia Liu, Village Manager, will not be in today. Joseph Geller, Village Attorney, is running late, and Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I will move on to subsection D, which is approval of the agenda. There are going to be a couple of items stricken. I think that is F5 and F9. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Yes, so we're going to strike those from tonight's agenda. If you were going to speak about those items, they are not appearing on tonight's agenda, but Madam Clerk will let us know when those items are going to come back to us. So with that being said, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda with the amendment that item F5 and F9 are not on tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with amended changes, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that's perfect. Moving on, we'll move on to subsection E, approval of the minutes for the April 17th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda, approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Hearing none, we'll move on into our agenda items. F1, tremendously long agenda item name, but the Village Historic Resource Survey presentation and funding consideration. I think that we will have a representative from Placerbia first, giving us that presentation, followed by a representative from the Dade Heritage Trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Megan McLaughlin. I'm with Placerbia. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for having us. I am here presenting, you all can see, okay. I'm here presenting the Historic Resources Survey for the entire village of El Portal. This project, the client for this project is Dade Heritage Trust, a nonprofit here in Miami that supports preservation and conservation of the natural environment. And they received a matching grant from the state of Florida, Division of Historical Resources. And I just wanted to kind of explain how this project works
Please
a
do.
little bit. So this is purely like an exploratory kind of research project and documentation of what is in El Portal. And El Portal is not the client, but El Portal would be able to use the information in this document. And currently the government agency that would be overseeing implementation of this particular project would be Miami-Dade County Office of Historic Preservation, because they are sort of the preservation body that works with this. On this project, Placerbia, our firm, was the lead consultant, but we also worked with an archaeologist who updated all the research that was available on the archaeological resources here in El Portal, and as well as a historian, Iris Kalaya. And so we, as part of this project, we documented every building in El Portal that was more than 50 years old. And so there's a map of the properties. Before we worked on this survey, there were nine properties in El Portal that had been documented ever, and that were on file with the state of Florida. And as a result of this survey, we have now 739 properties that are documented with the state of Florida. So this was a very big undertaking and a wonderful, I think, accomplishment on behalf of and for the benefit of the village. The first step when we worked on this project was we did some data analysis looking at the year of construction of the buildings and to begin to prioritize. And so that's sort of that map. We went door to door. We took photographs of every building within the village. And we created a Florida master site file for every one of those buildings. So this is just an example of the old Bryan house that was documented. So there was a current photo and a historic photo. We filled out a 2-page form very scientifically for that building. And we mapped it and put together the kind of like location information so that that's always going to be on file with the state of Florida as well as the county. We did that for every property, and also compiled this sort of directory of properties. So these are just a few examples of pages. In addition, we put together a historical narrative of the way that the village developed over time. And these are just some sample pages that came from that, from the 1800s all the way to the 1970s. Once we had gathered all this data and information and research and field work, and when we were out in the neighborhood, we brought it back to the office and we began to analyze what we had. And mapping that and kind of coming to some conclusions and recommendations on what could be next steps for the county or for the state or for the village if they wanted to recognize or potentially protect some of these historic resources. So the archaeologist consultant went into this deep dive of kind of pulling together all the research that had been done in the past and all the different archaeological studies, and found multiple important sites within the village. We also looked not only at architecture but also at the landscape, because the trees within the village are very significant, and even just the way that the yards and some of the site features on the properties are laid out contribute to that character. And one of the things that we found again and again in that historical research of how the village developed was the importance of planning and zoning. That really the character that we experience today when we're in the village of El Portal is in part as a result of kind of those zoning controls that have been in place. And it was always an important part of why the government of the village was even created in the first place, was that zoning control. So these are just some sample pages. We looked at driveways because driveways do kind of contribute to the character as well, so we kind of documented those. And finally, we looked at the architectural styles and kind of classified them and mapped them. So this is a color-coded map showing all the different architectural styles you would see in El Portal, all the way from the old wood houses to more of the Mediterranean, old Spanish houses, to some of the more newer ranch houses from the 50s. And again, these are just some sample pages from that survey report. We wanted this to be an educational document. So this is not a regulatory document. It's not anything that's going to change the way people live in their homes. It's really meant to be educational and kind of present what do we have here. It's taking stock. And so we did go kind of style by style. So the old wood houses, we looked at what are the predominant features of some of the older wood houses and how do we call things and how can we use a common language talking about them. And again, we did that for each of the different styles. There were quite a few of the ranch-style houses. Probably more than half of the homes in El Portal are from the 1950s. And there were some really significant types of that, so from the small, modest versions to the larger, more spread-out versions you would find maybe in Glendale Manor. And then all the way to this mid-century modern type of look. So I'm trying to go very fast. There's a lot more to it. It's probably a 300-page document with another 100-page property directory. But just briefly, I wanted to go through the next steps. The document is still a draft, so we're working with the county and the state of Florida to make final revisions. Those should be wrapped up by the end of August. We would love to come back and present the final document to you all. We will continue working with the county because the county, again, would be sort of the agency implementing this, as working closely with the Village of El Portal. And then finally, there's a lot of public education that can take place with this document. And there would always be the option in the future, if the village and the constituents were to decide, to look towards National Register nominations, which is a kind of an honorary way that you would show that, a particular building or a particular street is very special. You would also have the option of potentially doing like a local historic district through the county. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
I think that was an awesome presentation. It's really remarkable to see just some of the similarities between those photos, those original photos, and still some of the people that have put a lot of time and effort into preserving the look and the feel of the village. So kudos for the presentation. I think it's remarkable.
Thank you. And I think Christine Rupp wanted to give a presentation.
Yes, I
don't know
think
if she's-
now we're
yes.
going to
Okay.
hear from our representative from the Dade Heritage Trust.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I
Is
think-
she here?
I think she's on her way.
Okay, she's on her way. Okay. So, with that being said, do you feel comfortable as a body? I think we all know that the Dade Heritage Trust is going to come and give us some more information about a monetary contribution or request the monetary contribution from the village to further this work or finalize this effort. And do we as a committee feel comfortable kind of engaging in a conversation about whether or not that is something that we are interested in? I'm opening it up to the members.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Hello. This is an item that actually is sponsoring. I started the conversation with the manager, and the reason why is like, I started looking at these beautiful homes that we have here in El Portal, and I saw that the one of the houses that are there, little small house, very nice, got just sold. And I started looking at, and it was built on 1919. So I will hate for that structure to go down and build a block house, So I started looking into without me even knowing that we had this study going on. Started going one by one, the houses that I knew that were kind of like old. And up until last year, we only had 3 houses that were over 100 years old. So this year, we actually got 10 houses turning 100 years old. And next year will be another 9 houses. So we'll in total have over 20 houses, probably 24 homes. They're centennial homes. And I think that's a beauty and the character of this village. I would like to celebrate them and recognize them, and somehow do some sort of a month of our neighbor city is doing with the centennial homes. So I think that's important for our village. That's the nature of our village, as a matter of fact. And even whether we could actually create a historic preservation board, or go into the financial aspects of that, at least just recognizing them and put up a sign, it'll be a great start of these recognizing those historic homes. And I'm going more towards the 100-year-old houses. So
I think the creation of a historic preservation board would be awesome. Some entity or individuals that are in charge of tracking that, because I do think that that's very important for us historically, and I also think it creates an additional sense of place here in El Portal. And when we look at other communities that do similar things, I think through the property values, through the contentment of residents, all of those things, you can see that it's a worthwhile thing to do. I think the creation of the board can happen without, and I hate to speak about the Dade Heritage Trust portion of this without them being here. But the monetary contribution that they were requesting was at a minimum amount of $20,000. I think that that's significant for a village of our size, and also not something we can do in this fiscal year, so something we would have to look towards in the future. But I do think that with this information, it's definitely put that in our minds as to the importance of nodding to our past and recognizing those homes that are turning 100. So if the vice mayor would like to make a motion about or to move that conversation to the larger council meeting, I think that that would be something worthwhile to do. And as far as the question as to whether or not I think we should, as to the question, I thought you were leaving us. As to the question of whether or not we're able to make that financial commitment at this time, I do think that, it's a no. And this isn't an action item. This is just, it's just an FYI presentation. But I do want to state on the record, just so everyone knows where I stand, is that I do think $20,000 right now is just a heavy lift for a village of our size. But I do think that if the vice mayor wanted to do the committee, I think that that's a wonderful thing to do.
Yes, like I said, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a little premature to talk about all their shits.
Right on time.
To
Right
talk
on time.
about, all the financial aspects and stuff
Yes.
like that, but it's something to consider. So, yeah.
Yes. So you're on, hi, how are you? Good evening. Could you state,
Sure.
can you state your name and address for the record? I do think that you want to speak about your item, but we have had some discussion on it, so.
Perfect.
We've seen the presentation. We've read your letter stating the financial contribution that you would like from the village. At this point in time, we're taking it as a request that we are aware of. Financially, I don't think that the village can do it at this present time, but it's something that at least all of the committee members, council members are aware of and can think about broaching when we talk about the budget for the 24-25 fiscal year.
Okay.
So that's just kind of briefing you up. And now I want to give you an opportunity, if you want to, just kind of give us your presentation.
Sure, it's
Sure.
brief. First, I apologize for being late. I work in Brickell, and it's very rare that I
Oh
even
my-
go north of Flagler Street. And so understanding the traffic, which
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
Working in Brickell is kind of
Now-
like working in Tampa. It
now
can take you the same amount of time.
Now I get it. But just driving through the streets here, you guys have such a lovely place. It's like this magic place in the middle of Miami, and it's obvious that planning and historic preservation can ensure that you hang on to this charm. Because I did see some homes that weren't quite appropriate when it comes to the historic nature of and the fabric of the community. So that is why we apply for the grants for the state of Florida to help communities with planning efforts and look at historic preservation efforts so they can, properly ensure quality of life for the future. Obviously, when you get rid of historic homes that seem to have a smaller footprint than larger ones, you also decimate tree canopy and the reasons why people want to live in a desirable place like this because of that beautiful tree coverage, which once you build a bigger house, the trees go away. So we partner generally with communities all over Miami-Dade County when we do surveys. And there's always some give and take. I will tell you, we've done a lot of surveys for neighborhoods within the city of Miami. And while there has been some minimal direct financial contribution, there's also in-kind contribution as far as uses facilities or for our public programs, et cetera. So anything you guys could do for us would be greatly appreciated.
That is wonderful to know.
Sure. We always use Pluserbia because they do the best work, we believe. And so the survey work that was done for El Portal, I think, is really valuable and can help with planning efforts. So that's why, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit. It's my job to ask for money. And so, yeah, I can handle rejection too. But
Awesome.
anything you guys can contribute would be very appreciated.
Oh, well, that offer about in-kind contributions makes it more possible that we can figure out a way to make
Yeah.
this work. So
Okay.
I'll continue those conversations with the manager, and thank you so much for the presentation. We recognize how special El Portal is, and we definitely want to keep it that way. So
Yeah,
thank
I'm
you.
just saying, what other city hall has a lemonade stand out in front?
Hey,
before a
hey,
city
hey,
meeting? I
hey,
mean,
hey.
come on.
These are the big leagues,
It's,
okay?
It's so small town and lovely, so congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And again, I'm sorry for being late.
No
No
worries.
problem.
Thank you so much. All right, so I think that is all for F1. Item F2 is Resilient Streets Master Plan Report by Placerbia. This is one that I'm extra excited about. I'm excited about everything on the agenda, actually. I'm always excited about these agendas, but this one is something that is near and dear to my heart. This is a result of a lot of conversations, community meetings, surveys. We all know that we have varying viewpoints on the vision for what the village will look like in the future, but it is important for us to set our intentions and create a plan so we all know what collective goal we're working on. So with that in mind, Placerbia has engaged with our residents to have numerous meetings about what it is we want El Portal to look like in the future. And I think they've taken all of those ideas and mixed it together and come up with something that is exceedingly beautiful and is also resilient. It is important that we think about the flooding that's happening. It's important that we create permeable surfaces on our street. It's important that we listen to our residents about the parking that they need, about mobility issues they might have, and how they see their village growing and changing with them and their families. And I think this report has done an excellent plan, set forth an excellent plan. So without further ado, I'll let Juan take it away.
Thank you.
And let me know.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Wonderful turnout, and I promise I won't hog the entire meeting since my wife already did half of that. So we've been working on this for a few years. It's long overdue. We have, for those of you that were not involved, this is not an end-all, be-all. This is one step in a way to improve the streets, create value, improve mobility, safety, and instead of continuing this monologue, I'm just going to show you what we've got. We feel, and we shared with you all, and you shared with us how important your streets are. They are your front door. They are how you get out and how you come back. They are welcoming, and they're also the way that people have a memory of the place that they've just visited. So we feel that this is especially important in El Portal, where you have incredible canopy. And streets do a lot of things, not just to be beautiful and to allow you to move around, but they also have create an opportunity for resilience, especially because you are near, you are bound by one of Miami's rivers, and so you get some flooding. So this is an opportunity to also tackle that. So streets do many, many things. And that's why we need to approach, the village needs to approach any upgrade that gets done in the streets in a holistic manner. It's not just about planting a tree. It's not just about creating, a solution for parking, which we've been asked for years, right? How do we park? These streets are too tight. People are parking on my swale. It's not just about solving that. It's about looking at all the problems that we have, all the challenges that we have, all the opportunities that the streets provide, and then come up with a solution. So this is what we set ourselves out to do. The report is not 300 pages like Megan's, but it is about 40 pages, and it will be public on the website, I'm sure. You guys can comment on it as well, but you'll see a lot more detail what's up here. In essence, they need to provide comfort and safety. They need to provide resilience and sustainability. They are a form of health for a community. The more walkable, the more inviting they are, the more they encourage people to walk. Walkability has many, many benefits. I'm not going to get into those. They provide economic development. We've got North Miami Avenue and 2nd Avenue as well, which, if done properly, they could encourage some commercial activity to happen there, which also has an effect on the economy of the village, and provide a place for you to walk to. which currently you have to go to either City of Miami or Miami Shores to do your shopping. Social development, mobility. At the end of the day, they are what's in the center of this slide, a way for improving your quality of life. Streets and resilience. I'm not going to go into too much detail on each of the slides, but just to let you know that depending on how we design them, they can provide additional stormwater permeability and also additional room for trees and canopy, which provide shade and therefore could make it more comfortable to inhabit the streets. So why do we redesign the streets? Well, your streets are pretty old, and they have been resurfaced over and over again, but really not really given much thought about new modes of transportation, new ways that people move. We haven't really thought about how do we upgrade in a way that that captures the new technologies that we have and the new ways that people move about. We're not our grandparents, and you know, these streets were, when they were put in place, Megan, when? In the 1920s. So we've just been resurfacing the same streets from the 1920s. There's a lot of reasons why we can redesign and implement a new way for these streets. And then obviously there's the question about swales. I don't think that there's been a committee meeting here where swales have not been discussed. So swales is something that we should address. There's many ways to address them. We can, you know, and I will show you a few examples of what we've come up with. We did a bunch of context analysis. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. Rest assured, we looked at the flooding. It's different in different places in the village. We looked at traffic. Traffic and cut-through traffic was one of the main things that we also heard from the community that was an issue. We looked at a number of things through our analysis, and we came up with basically four types of streets. 3 types of streets, really. In reality, it's just 3. And those are the neighborhood corridors, the main streets, the neighborhood streets. The neighborhood streets are the ones you see in green. The neighborhood corridors are typically the ones that are owned by the county, or 87th Street, which is one of your neighborhood main streets. And then the main streets, which is 2nd Avenue, which is also supported in kind by the zoning district, which runs along both sides. So to just give you an example of what these are. So your neighborhood streets are your local streets. They're the ones that most of your houses front. They should be calm. They should reduce speed for traffic. They should discourage people that are not from here from driving in them. We should keep those cars in the main corridors instead of having to cut through your neighborhood. And they typically are very lush. You see in the bottom right-hand image, that's Northeast 85th. You can see the kind of canopy and natural setting that these streets have. The neighborhood corridors you have here: North Miami, North 87th, which is the one we're on, and then North Miami and North Miami Avenue as well. As you can see, they're quite different. 87th is a small section, 2-way. I believe it's 60-foot right-of-way from property to property. And then North Miami Avenue resembles more 2nd Avenue. Those are not commercial, but they carry a lot more traffic than your neighborhood streets. And then finally, your main street. Your main street is 2nd Avenue. Again, the county has some plans to upgrade it as well, and so we incorporated some of those designs into this project. We did a number of community engagement meetings. We came up with 2 main directions that we could take this into. We also had a website. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to go through it. I think it's still up, and there's still the survey's still up, so you're welcome to go on it. Again, this information will be on the village's website after this meeting. And then we got, we filtered all the community feedback that we got. We got a lot on the areas that were flooding, and we got a lot on the areas that were that had a lot of cut-through traffic. Our online survey gave us a lot of information. The top main concerns were traffic calming, driving behavior, and speeding. Those were the 3 main topics that we heard. We also heard again a lot about swale choice and what residents preferred. Green infrastructure for stormwater was top of the list, as well as the swales remaining natural. And then the online survey, this is a word cloud that shows you how many times we heard something. Speeding, 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 vegetation, trees, lighting, signage was another one, traffic, etc. We went through a few exercises. It was an interactive exercise where residents were placing the different modes or the different areas within the street and how those should be aligned and within what streets. And these are some pictures of the resulting maps. The workshops, as I said, came up with 3 different sections for the 3 different types of streets that we have. And let me show you what those resulted in. The document that will be posted will also include some best practices. Again, this is always good to remember what other places are doing so that we can benchmark the future development or the future, rather, implementation to current best practices. And then we also proposed a few design strategies that are more specific to the village itself. Rainwater harvesting, community gardens, urban green spaces, green roofs, things that are things that should be thought about at the same time that we're looking at these streets. And then green infrastructure, of course, that would take care of the heat management, water management, and native support strategies, meaning the planting of trees and different vegetation within the village. So design alternative number 1, the two are quite similar. So I'm just going to show you one. I'm going to tell you how alternative number 2 differs from this one in a big way. So if you look at this map here, the way that we envision this is not that dissimilar from the strategy that secretly Coral Gables uses, which is how can I get someone who's not from here totally confused so that they will never go through our neighborhood streets ever again. And that's how Coral Gables handles traffic intrusion. We didn't think that we should go 100% that route because we're not that unwelcoming than Coral Gables. But I think that we should take cue on some of the strategies that Coral Gables uses and some of the strategies that other villages, other towns use, which is mainly one-way streets that are running alternatively from east to west and west to east. The other strategy that we're using is something called diagonal diverters. And I know that sounds super technical. So I'm going to show you a picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words. But keep that idea in your head. Diagonal diverters. Those are those yellow diagonal lines that you see there. And I'll show you why we added them, and I'll show you what the advantages of using something like that are. Needless to say, main streets have 2 ways. Commercial properties, commercial businesses require as many headlights as possible, so we wanted as many cars to run within the corridors and within the main street so that we encourage people driving through to remain on those streets. And again, this is the design alternative number 2. There are some differences. The main difference is those diverters, which I will show you in a second. All right, so to show you a neighborhood street, this is what you currently have. You have 32% impervious, which is what your road basically is, and you have 68 pervious, pretty good. You have 0 semi-pervious, which is not a bad thing because from a stormwater perspective, you have a lot of pervious right-of-way, which means that you have a lot of area where in a major storm, water percolates through the soil faster than if you had less pervious. So that's the idea. So how can we improve this? There's a few different issues that we have. We will be looking at the noise ordinance soon. There's a few issues that we have with this one. We've heard the issue about parking on swales. We heard about vegetation following the comprehensive plan. We heard a number of issues. So how can we improve it? One of the ways to improve it is to incorporate a parking lane instead of one of the directions that we're traveling. So I'm going to go back and forth real quick so that you can see it. If you concentrate on the plan right here, currently you have a 2-way, one heading east, one heading west. And here you have turning one of the directions into parking. What does that do? It basically narrows the amount of lane that you have for travel, so the speeds are slower, which is one of the objectives that we heard was preferred, and then it provides a place for parking. This wouldn't happen everywhere, and I'm going to show you how this would look. So your parallel parking wouldn't happen in front of every house, but there could be a strategy where if by choice of the property owner, one would like to have a parking space placed in front of their property, that could be done. Again, the ins and outs and how that would happen hasn't been worked out. This is just the design. And then in terms of implementation, the village could take different steps to implement that strategy. All right, so that's 86th. Another option, which we came up in collaboration with the village, thank you for the input, was to add to this, in some places where there's currently no sidewalks, potentially a meandering path. A path that could be natural. It doesn't have to be paved with concrete. It could be crushed stone, as it is done in many places in Florida, which is, again, permeable, but it feels natural. It meanders through the trees. So not only we would save whatever trees we have there, but we could also have the opportunity to plant even more, which again is one of the goals that the comprehensive plan calls for. So that's the main difference on this one. By the way, in terms of impervious, as you can see, we have semi-pervious here, which would be the parking, that 18%. So in essence, we would be adding about 10% of permeability to the entire right-of-way. So we are improving the permeability, the resilience. We are improving the part of the parking issue. We are improving the swales, and we are improving mobility with this potential natural paths. All right, and this is what this would look like. The intersection is also important. Sometimes when you do master plans for streets, one tends to forget that when two streets meet, something needs to happen. You know, not everybody drives all the way straight, otherwise 86 would basically put you in the bay. So at some point you need to turn. The intersections here, the one that would be probably most critical and the one that creates some challenges is 2nd Avenue, partly because it's a county road, partly because you have several movements. By limiting the mobility to a one-way only, we're also improving the crossing for pedestrians on 2nd Avenue moving north and south. Why? Because suddenly the travel lane is much narrower. So by becoming between 10 to 12 feet at that intersection, it is super comfortable to cross instead of your 24 that you currently have, your 20 to 24 that you currently have. That's one of the advantages. The second advantage is that your turning radiuses can actually be shorter, which means that cars would drive slower, which means that people wouldn't fly into your neighborhood as if they were driving down I-95, which is the way 2nd Avenue currently looks, if I may say that. Because it's, currently 2nd Avenue has no median, and it just, it's a landing pad for a jumbo jet. So by doing this, we would probably improve the way that that cars move and the way that pedestrians move through the intersection. Let me show you another one. So 88th Street, a major difference from 86 is that it currently does have sidewalks. This is the existing 40% impervious, 60% pervious. The way that we could potentially modify it would be to, again, add the parking lane. We're not making much of a difference here. The only thing that we're doing really, if you ask me, is to remove part of that pavement and make it semi-pervious. Again, improving by 5% in this case, the amount of permeability that we have, and then adding 15%. So in essence, if you consider semi-pervious half, it would be about 10% additional permeability to the entire right-of-way. And this is the way that it would look. My apologies that these images are a little small, but the PDF will be available and you can zoom in. They're actually beautifully detailed, and we've included native plants in there as well. You will see here, that would be the parking lane where the white car is, and the gray lane would be the travel lane for this street. All right, this is that one that I was telling you I was going to zoom in and really show you in detail, because this is the diverter that I was telling you about. This is 88th and 3rd. So this is this is an avenue and one of your neighborhood streets. Oh, it looks beautiful here. Let me show you. Can I do this? Yes. Can you see it now? Is it good? It's a little bit bad resolution, but let me turn because I really like this one. And I think that you guys really like this one as well, so I'll take a minute to describe it. So what happens here currently is that you have 2 lanes heading east, one lane heading east, 1 lane heading west, 1 lane heading north, and 1 lane heading south. So what we're doing is we're creating a diverter. What is a diverter? A diverter is basically, as the word, the word diverting means that you're basically not allowing cars to move all the way through and up. So you're making people go, as they're moving north, they would take a slight or a 90-degree left turn instead of having to move all the way through. The ones that can actually move through the entire intersection would be those that are non-motorized, which would be the pedestrians and the bicycles, and it would provide a lot more area for planting. So you would end up with a lot more canopy and a lot more permeability, as well as, again, precluding those that are not from here from cutting through. Those that are heading south towards downtown Miami to take a quick left onto one of your neighborhood streets, speed up all the way to First, and then head south and then out the village. Or those that are heading north and are cutting through between Second and North Miami, those would be precluded from actually doing so because they would have to take 2 turns before they get to their destination. Something that discourages that motion. And then again, in some of these, like 3rd Avenue, you would have some parallel parking if the resident so chooses. Let me see if I can find my mouse, and I will do that again. All right. North Miami, which would be a neighborhood corridor. This is the current look of it. As I said, a very wide corridor. We've got about 60-foot asphalt, 4 lanes plus a turning lane, or a suicide lane, as some of us call it. This could potentially be reduced to something similar to what the county is proposing for 2nd Avenue. We'd still keep the turning lane. We would reduce it to a one-way north and one-way south, and then provide 1 parking lane on either side. The other thing that we're doing here would be turning the 5-foot sidewalks into 10-foot sidewalks, which would make it a lot more comfortable for walking. And in addition to that, on the western side, what we're adding also about 7 feet for benches, for lighting, for additional planting, for signage, etc. Things that are currently somewhat deficient in these avenues. And the way that this would look, again, these will be available online so you can see a little bit more detail, but you can see the median here, and as you look in more detail, also where you see the letter A, that's where the parking would be. Another option for North Miami Avenue would be not to have that 7-foot area for furniture and add parallel parking on either side. Again, this is an alternative that we thought was worth looking at, and this is what it would look like. On 87th, which even though it is not your main street, is one of your main streets where people actually cut through. This is the current section that you have. Again, you have swales, you have your travel lanes. We recommend that not be changed in terms of mobility. It's too important, it carries too much traffic. It is one of the main nodes, one of the main corridors for your village. What we would recommend is that, again, alternatively, throughout the right-of-way, provide areas where the swale becomes a parking area, as long as, of course, it does not affect the location of any of the existing trees. What would that do? It would identify and make it very clear where you can and where you cannot park, which I think it has been a point of contention in the last, 8-9 years that we've been working with you. That's always been the question that people have had. Can I park in front of my house? Can I park on the swale? By identifying where that can happen, a lot of that anxiety would be removed. It would be clearer for code enforcement, and it would also provide additional permeability in areas where the car is supposed to park. And this is the way that this would look. Again, not changing the mobility of this, just providing for clarity of where things have to happen. Second Avenue, we incorporated the county's proposal, and we clarified some of the things that we had questions about. This is the way that it looks currently. Again, you have a 70-foot right-of-way. This is your commercial street, so because it's your commercial street, we have to incorporate into this one your setbacks for your shop fronts, potential cafes, etc., and also provide for a bike lane, which is where the county has currently identified that infrastructure should happen, and this is the way that looks like. Another alternative here that we wanted to present as well would be where you have 2 bike lanes, one running now north, one running south. A turning lane remains there, and this is a section where it's closer to one of the intersections, so that's why your turning lane is on one side of the right-of-way. And again, this is what it would look like. So with that, that's my 57-page report. I'm sorry for
Awesome.
being long-winded.
No,
but
no,
I'll
I think it's completely
stay for
necessary.
questions.
It was completely necessary. And I do want to emphasize something that you said earlier, like this is a plan. And what would be a really great thing is for everyone in this room to sit with this plan, give us feedback on what you like, what you don't like, tell your neighbors about this plan, so that we can really get a collective vision on where we are going. I think solidifying a plan like this adds to the possibility for there to be continuity and for there to actually be execution. This can't happen in 2 years. We won't see this, right? But if we agree on what we want our village to look like, with each step, each road that's torn up for sewer conversions, we can think about how do we get closer to this plan. Each new council, because we will not be here forever, can point to this plan and ultimately get us to this place, which in my opinion, and I'm only one of many, but that I think is completely beautiful and equally smart when we think about what is happening with the environment. So with that being said, I do think that we are going to post this online, correct, Madam Clerk? And that survey is still open, and we still want your feedback, either personally or through the online search tool, but definitely amazing work. I love what it looks like. And I sense that Mr. Mayor has something to say because I see your finger on that button, so I'll recognize you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to say that, and I know, I don't know how you want to do this or if you even want to do this. And I know we weren't going to open it up. I know there are a couple of residents who came specifically for this item to ask a question.
Okay.
So I don't
Good to
how you
know,
wanna
good
do
to
that.
know. We definitely want all the feedback that we can get. I will keep it to the council for right now, and then I'll open it to our guests, and then bring it back to the council for
Thank you, Madam
final
Chair.
comments. Not a problem. Councilman Lightfoot Ward, I do want to say for the record that Councilman Lightfoot Ward has joined us, as well as a City Attorney Joe Geller, the one and only. He is here. So Councilman Lightfoot Ward, would you like to say something on this item?
I mean, I can hear you.
You can now. Okay. My concern is strictly the flooding. I know I came in a little bit late. Can you reiterate how we're going to control flooding?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question. That was one of the objectives. Now, how can we control flooding? You cannot. What you can do is improve the infrastructure so that your flooding events are less harmful and that the water dissipates faster. The way that we are doing this, we're doing several things, but the main strategy that we're using is increase permeability. Currently, you have all your two-way roads, which basically generally are about 20 foot wide. We're reducing those to 10. So you're doubling or you're minimizing by half the amount of asphalt that is dedicated to the cars. In addition to that, some of the intersections are being, as they're proposed currently in this plan, they add areas and islands for permeability as well. So we're using as much, or we're proposing to use as much material that is permeable as possible in order to reduce the time that it takes for water to permeate through.
Does that answer your question, Councilman? Awesome. I do love that there has been a focus throughout the document on increasing the amount of permeable surfaces that we have. And also the way that those options look are varied. The rain gardens I thought were amazingly beautiful. Also the option in the swales with the interlocking top surface, I thought that was beautiful. Any other comments from council members? Okay, with that being said, I'll open it up to our guests. If you do have a comment on item F2, please step up to the podium and be sure to state your name and address for the record. This one, yes, please.
Hello. Okay. Augustine Ramos, 60 Northwest 91st Street. My wife Kathy is here also. We actually participated in the survey. Some of the comments that we put are in your slides, so thank you for that. We're big fans of 99% of what's in there, so don't get me wrong when I cover the part that I wanted to stand up to talk about was in both iterations that you have of the street layouts, we're on west of Miami Avenue. We're on 91st. 91st is another one that you have marked as a sort of primary street where it would be two ways as opposed to one ways in between 91st and 87th. The concern we have is in particular, Northwest 91st, we already have quite a bit of cars that drag race through there. It's the minute you get onto 91st from Miami Avenue, there is no stop sign or anything from there until Northwest 2nd. So that's about a third of a mile. Drag racers like quarter miles. They try to see if they can do it in 10 seconds or less, and they do it often. So that already happens. So if you have more cars funneling to that street, I think that only increases the chances of that happening. But also, cut-through traffic is not just from Miami Avenue north and south. A lot of it comes in the mornings from people getting off 95, and instead of waiting on 95th Street to make a right, they make a right on Northwest 2nd, come down Northwest 2nd and cut through Northwest 91st, and then get out to Miami Avenue that way, because I guess Google Maps or Waze or whatever is telling them to do that. We actually had a big moving truck take out a power wire and knock out power to a bunch of people on the street. It happens most mornings. As it is, cars back up onto Northwest 91st, waiting to make a right onto Miami Avenue as they're doing that in the mornings. So you said that 87th and 91st is marked the same as 87th. Those are primary. A lot of cars go there already. Making the in-between sort of the sandwich of the streets one way only sends more cars to both. So that would be a concern that we have on that, and both designs have 91st marked that way. So everything else we're very happy with. We hope it all happens as soon as possible, but just that particular design element with the one-way streets in between, I think just increases the traffic.
And that's the kind of comments that we would love to hear. This is not a closed process, as the
Yes.
council person said. So if you can email those to us, we'll compile any comments and modifications. You won't see a bulldozer tearing up streets anytime soon, so there's time for improving, refining, and making sure that it works as well as it can. Rest assured, we did work with the village's engineers, so there are some decisions here that are not just purely design-oriented or stormwater-oriented, they're also about vehicular fluidity. So I'd love to look at your email, send it to us, give us some detail on what the issue is between what we're presenting and what your issue is, and we will work with them to see if there's a better solution in that specific area.
Sure, and again, we big fans of everything else that was in there. That was just one observation.
No,
for
and
your
thank you for your comment. I
Of course.
appreciate that, because even if you love 99%, we do want to hear about that 1%.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think is very valid, and something that we need to at least think about when we're rolling this out, or when we're thinking about how to roll this out. So I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
All righty. Any other comments on item F2? Step up to the podium and please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, everyone. 11090 Northeast 87th Street. I come in representation for that main avenue. The issue is we don't mind the number of cars in the morning. We just mind the speeding. We know the signs right now are 30 miles per hour, but we know that the cars sometimes are at 50 miles per hour. So we are afraid of having a car like hitting our homes. And in the mornings when we're trying to pull out of our homes, the cars coming, instead of stopping for letting us like coming out, they just speed. So that's our only concern, not being the main avenue, because it has something important, and the advantage is we feel it's the safest street in the village. We can see all the police cars patrolling around, so it's great, but it's just the speeding. We've come here to the village many times in representation of the 87th Street neighbors to indicate the same concern. So that's the same with the 91st Street, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment. And I do know that that's an ongoing issue and something the mayor and the entire council have continued to keep their eye on and thrown different resources at. I think the idea is generally this would cut down some of that intrusive traffic, but we definitely will keep 87th Street in mind, as we always have, to try to figure out how to solve this problem for you guys. Thank you so much for the comment. Any other comments from the gallery? No. Please step up, and please state your name and address again for the record. Thank you.
Still Agustin Ramos, 60
I like the
Northwest
still.
91st Street. One last thing, I noted when we were reading the comments provided in the survey, and this was a neighbor's comment, so maybe it's wrong, but I wanted to ask about it. Someone said that, I know we can't have speed bumps in the streets. So is that like an actual thing, or was that just somebody saying we can't have speed bumps?
Madam Chair.
For sure. Mr. Mayor.
I'll sit down. Thanks.
All right, so so we can't have speed bumps without permission. The county and the state are not giving permission for street closures or speed bumps. Now, see, you guys are gonna make me. Now, talk to me offline. There's a way that we found a loophole kind of around it to where we're gonna be able to start to bring in some speed bumps. That's all I can say about that. Contact me. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other comments on F2? All right. Step up to the podium and please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Jay Rivero, 225 Northeast 86th Street. I wasn't able to see it completely because it's sideways to where I'm sitting, but I did notice there is some sort of change on Northeast 86th Street about swell or parking. No, don't do that. The street is already small enough for 2 cars to go through. If a moving truck or FedEx large truck comes through, we have to pull over to the side. So I am totally against making any changes with parking on the street or a walkway on the street. We have no sidewalks. I understand for the safety, we should have sidewalks, but the properties have been as is since 1930s that the properties have been there. I've lived there 20 plus years. I have not seen a accident east of 2nd Avenue up to here, 4th Avenue Road. I will give you the credit that the streets are extremely small. 2 cars, it's very tight. So I'm totally against that. Thank you.
That's why,
Yeah.
if I may just address that, that's part of the reason why we're proposing to not have 2 lanes. If 2 lanes are too small for the current right-of-way, we should not have 2 lanes. We should have a single lane, or at least, let me rephrase that before you answer that, because I know you're coming back with this is a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna be built tomorrow, but if you ask us with an idea to solve the issue of a narrow street that does not take care of proper mobility. Like you said, 2 lanes too small, the road is too small for 2 lanes. It does not take care of the permeability, resilience, and it does not provide a safe environment for a pedestrian because it doesn't have a sidewalk. One of the solutions, instead of making it bigger, right, with more asphalt, which would be bad for your permeability, it might solve your FedEx truck, but it will not solve either your parking or your permeability. It would be to remove one of the lanes and increase the width of the remaining lane so that you have a comfortable way of driving through, provide a parking space where that lane was removed, and then provide potentially more room for, number one, permeability and planting as well. We provided 2 options for 86, one with a meandering path for pedestrians, and another one without, because we understand that some neighbors might not want it. And we didn't say which one is better, because again, there is no definite solution for it yet until the village adopts a plan.
I understand. It's right or wrong. Plan is in development. Another item I want to bring up is I know there is no road closure. I know that there's no speed bumps, but you have to take into consideration that when that church, the business open, many cars will start cutting through 86th Street. That's going to become an issue. So that needs to be resolved.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. Anyone else for item F2? All right, thank you so much, Juan. I appreciate it. I'm sure you'll be standing right there as we go to F3, which is the presentation of code amendment proposals. Can you run us through that really quickly?
Am I reading the
Yes.
item? I'm reading the item? Is there
Actually,
an item?
no. The attorney will be back in a second. I think this is just a presentation. Is this an actual item? It's just a presentation, so we can just hop into it. This is a compilation of the frequent code violations or questions about code amendments that we've had. The manager sent over a list prior to this meeting, just saying some of the heavy hitters that she's had and solutions she would like implemented in our code. Juan and Placervia have taken a look at that and provided us with a proposal. So if you could just give us a brief synopsis of that.
Yes, I'll give you the Cliff Notes. So the current code was passed in 2016, I believe. We worked on it since 14, 15, and then 16. I believe that's correct. And so and typically zoning codes are updated on a regular basis when there is a need. In other words, when, for instance, you see too many variances on an item, the village may decide to make modifications to the code in order for that variance to be, a regular approval. Another reason why you may find that you need a code amendment is to meet the new standards. If you have, for instance, as is the case here, the change in comprehensive plan. Another reason why you would update a code would be because there are scrivener's errors, because a county makes some modifications to county code, et cetera. So there's many reasons. We have, in the past few years, made some modifications to the code. Fences have been brought up. There's been code modifications to garages, I believe there was a few years ago, and a few others. But there has not been a comprehensive look at the zoning code and how that needs to be brought into to meet the needs of today's village. So for a few years now, we've been asked to put together a proposal, and most recently, it's been asked of us to take lead, put that proposal forward, and share with you how we would make those modifications, how we would make those amendments. We proposed, we sent you a proposal a few weeks ago. It included some public outreach. It included some analysis of what's existing. In part, it's not because we don't know the code, it's because there are some elements of the code that are not in Chapter 24, which is where the code resides, but rather they are spread throughout your Code of Ordinances. There's noise, I believe is in Chapter, 13, right? And there's the building chapter on Chapter 5, and there's some things there with other items that the village manager asked us to incorporate. So there is a significant amount of work that needs to be done combing through your entire Code of Ordinances, figuring out what was left out back in 2015 and needs to be incorporated, and what does not need to be incorporated but still needs to clean up. So it's a two-part job, is to update the zoning code, and also it is to clean up your Code of Ordinances to make sure that there's no inconsistencies or contradictions.
Thank you so much. And according to your proposal, the total fee for this would be about $85,000. I just want to state that on the record, and also get from the committee members if they have any questions about this this particular proposal. I'll open up. Councilman Erbaum?
Yeah, hi, Juan.
Hey.
For example, out of the Code Enforcement Committee, noise right now is a priority, and then hot on that, on its heels is light, actually. And so going through like the noise ordinance, most of it pertains to HVAC systems. It's beyond, like, it's not just outdated, it's also almost just specific to one or two very specific activities. So we'll find things like that as we go through the code as well, in terms of, and then with the light, we're missing really any kind of code at all regarding light, right? So here we are in the 2024, and LED everything, and everything's now even, what do you call it, like Wi-Fi ready and things like this. So there's just new issues that neighbors are dealing with between themselves, and this code, as you're saying, is just, right now, not just outdated, but also in some cases irrelevant, to be perfectly honest. So this is a significant need, as the way I see it, and I'm looking forward to what we can do to, because we have a lot of changes coming to the neighborhood as we speak, so.
And forgive me, another big ticket item for this, I forgot, so my apologies, but it was to incorporate the design guidelines and codify them. And that's also a significant amount of work, because we're going from the pretty image to zoning code. That was another thing that was asked of us.
And I apologize if I missed this. How long would it take before we start this process to when we actually have an updated set of codes that we can actually look to on Municode?
So the way that we had proposed it, and again, it's something that we can work with you. The way that we had, forgive me, let me find it here. So it would be about 5 months to go through the code, do the analysis, and do the write-up. And then there would be a process of implementation and adoption. We would have to work with the village manager, well, of course, the village manager, you all, and the residents. So there would be some public outreach as well. And finally, we would have to work with your village attorney to make sure that the language is correct and enforceable.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council on this item? Well, obviously, well, not obviously. I think because of the amount associated with this item, this isn't something that we can undertake this year. It would be something that we'd have to look to in the future. Go ahead, Council.
I'm sorry. Yes, Madam Chair, if I may. I think this is an item that was already passed, right? On a consent agenda in the last committee meeting. Because the funds weren't coming, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor. I think it was included in a consent agenda last committee
Council meeting?
Because it wasn't coming from the budget, it was something, isn't it?
So we passed through consent to move forward with speaking about the process, but we didn't speak about the budgetary item associated with it, and we didn't speak about the details of how much to go through, how much to get done, and things like that. We just passed to start the process through the consent agenda.
Yeah, I see, but I saw the amount.
Yeah, it's a big
Yes.
amount. And I think it would be worthwhile for us to sit and think about how to execute this. Also speak with the manager about the amount and whether or not we can engage with that amount presently, and if this is our best option. At the end of the day, we need it. We should do it. I think the inconsistencies in the code are the reason why a lot of you are in here tonight. So I do think that there needs to be something done. I just don't know if it's better, if the only route is this comprehensive overhaul for the 84,000, or if we can spot treat some of the heavy hitting items. And I would need some guidance from the manager as to what budgetarily we can withstand. I see you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll recognize you.
No, exactly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So that's exactly what it was. So all we said was that this is something that needs to get done. We need to do it. Let's say, for example, this year we want to tackle swells, and then next year we want to tackle. So
I need
those
the
are
layaway plan.
Yeah,
for
those
this.
are the detailed
Yeah.
decisions that we can make for sure.
Yeah, I think that's good to know. If there are any other comments, okay, hearing none, I would love to go ahead and move forward to item F4. Hold on one second. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to talk about item F3? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Scott Kobrick, 8525 Northeast 4th Avenue Road. Yeah, I just wanted to speak about the noise ordinance. I know this might not be, the exact time where it's necessary, but just maybe preliminarily. There was, basically with respect to construction hours, regarding, the hours that construction is allowed, which I believe is now Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. And there is, I think we're going to be experiencing an enormous amount of development that happens in El Portal in the very near future, in the coming years. And as a result of that, I experienced when Cavista, the building over here on 83rd Street, was built, I experienced an enormous amount of noise from construction that was really hard to handle because when, it's 8 a.m., and then there was a lot of, I think, special permission got in to do some work earlier. So there was, pretty much every day with no relief except Sunday. So 6 days a week, there were pretty much all hours that I was awake from, early 6 in the morning until later on. There was a lot of trucks beeping and jackhammering, an enormous amount of noise. So my proposal that I wanted everybody to consider was potentially doing, there's a lot of neighboring municipalities that have Monday through Friday construction hours. So I wanted to propose something like a Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. The reason that I am saying the 9 a.m. is because when it is 8 a.m., there's a lot of activity that starts way earlier than that, with the workers showing up, the trucks beeping, idling, and all sorts of that. So I think when going through some other code from other municipalities, it seems that some municipalities target it by really being very specific with, dropping off the staff and the workers and hours for that, as well as hours that trucks can be idling and so on and so forth. And then other places just do it as a flat later time that anything can start. So I think from what happened there, it seemed like no matter what, there was going to be a lot of activity that happens early, several hours, couple hours earlier than the stated time of the ordinance. So to avoid that, I thought it would be, great to make that 9 a.m. Instead of 8 a.m. And offer I just think that this is very, very important because of the amount of development that is going to be happening in the near future. And I think that it's going to be on 2nd Avenue. It's going to be on 83rd Street. All of Sherwood Forest is, very close proximity to the 83rd Street area. And then, of course, a lot of us are close to North Miami and Northeast 2nd and so on. So I believe that those will also be developed a lot in the near future, and we're going to be surrounded by it. And I feel like it's really important for us to have the peace and quiet of this village. So
Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. And Councilman Erbaum chairs the Code Enforcement Committee. In addition to that, I think your comment highlights something else. Undertaking this comprehensive overhaul, definitely necessary, but that's an elongated timeline. Figuring out a way to address some of our big ticket items, a little bit more efficiency and with a shorter timeline is something that's definitely should be on our radar because you've been coming to us for a while talking about this issue. So I'll give the floor to Councilman Erbaum. He might have something to say that you want to hear.
Yeah, so, let's see. No? Okay. All right. So, August is a recess month for us, so there's not going to be any meetings, but I'm ready to go in September with a proposal for a new noise ordinance, which would also include the construction. So I'm ready to have that meeting occur in September, whichever format that. The idea is to get it in front of the council by the September meeting. I know that we have an election year and there's other things going on, but it is my intention to have that occur in September. I'm ready to go with a noise ordinance. Obviously, attorney will be involved with that. But the point being that, just as Councilperson Martin said, now understanding the timeline, now having this discussion of what either of our urban planners are going to do, I'm ready to go in September with noise, and then we have no light ordinance at all, and so once we would get the noise ordinance settled, the next objective would be to introduce some manner of residential light ordinance. And then beyond that point would be established in those meetings to decide what goes next in concert with whatever they might be closer to being finished with or further away, and we can maybe get some things done in the meantime.
great.
Really great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment on item F3? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to F4. This is the zoning hearing signage discussion. And from what I recall, I think this was your item, Councilman Perella. So if you would like to introduce it, that's fine. Or I can give you a heads up. Yes, so with some of our neighbors, when you're having a zoning hearing, there's actually a placard that's erected in front of your home, letting people know that the date and time of the hearing, and generally it's another form of notice. And Councilman Perella suggested at one of our other planning and zoning meetings or a council meeting, forgive me, I'm old, and I cannot recall which one, but Councilman Perella suggested that we utilize those signs as well. So the manager went and did her due diligence. She found us a series of providers that are able to provide this type of signage at anywhere from $650 to $1,985. These signs would be something that we can use over and over again. And in full disclosure, the person who is applying, the applicant, would be the person that would be responsible for essentially that rental fee for the signs. That we haven't decided what that fee will be, but there will be a fee associated with it. So with that being said, I wanted to frame up the discussion so that we can talk about whether or not we actually want to move forward with utilizing these signs with the complete knowledge and information to our guests that the applicant would have an additional fee to handle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that explanation. And yes, I think it's very important because there are certain items, certain items that will impact the neighbors, the surrounding neighbors of some variances that have been asked. And a lot of people don't have the time to go online and check on, the meetings and the agenda items and stuff like that. Whether you have the sign in front of the property that has been asking for the variance, then the neighbors will get more involved, and, that'll be a great thing to do. And yes, I think, and I also wanted to actually take the opportunity and probably, because I spoke to the manager about actually having the signs, also the signs for the Centennial homes made with within the same fee, the same line item over here, and have them make. I mean, the amounts are not bad. It's the highest is $1,900 for 100 signs or something like that, or goes all the way from $650 to $1,900. So I think this is something that I'm in favor of, because I think it will benefit the surrounding neighbors in case of any impact on a variance being asked.
And I definitely don't want to scare any guests in the audience. When we talk about 695 and 1,000, we're talking about for a bulk of signs,
bulk of 50
like
signs,
100
yes,
signs.
right.
I think the manager, the top end of how much of that cost will be requested from the applicant, I think it's around like $20.
$20, yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about like $20. But definitely there is an enhanced level of notice when there is that placard erected in front of those buildings. And I do share your sentiments on the placards for the 100-year-old homes. I'll leave it to everyone else to discuss as to whether or not we want these placards. Does anyone else have a comment or question on this item on F4?
If I may,
Sure.
there's just signs.
Signs.
That goes for a month and take them out.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So I read it as the low end is 97 per sign. No, you're right.
No, it's
Yeah,
50
yeah.
units
No,
for
you're right, yeah.
$650.
No, you're right, okay.
And these signs will be used over and over again.
Yeah.
So,
they have, so you'll be able to change information on them, like the little line, erase it?
hey, I'm no sign expert, but I believe so. This is what I was told, okay?
I think
Okay.
there's some that offer the erase board kind
Yeah.
of thing. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well,
I
it's
think
super-
the bulk for the signs it's $650 for 50 signs, and
Yeah.
then whoever's asking for a variance just have to pay for the sign, like around
Yeah.
$25, and that's it.
Yeah,
And then-
it's not,
yeah.
it's definitely not a moneymaker for the village, but it makes sure that the fiscal impact is borne by the person who's receiving the benefit. In addition to that, when I have seen it in other municipalities, I've seen it where they've essentially taken like an additional piece of paper and put it over the pertinent information section, so they're not actually writing on these signs. So yeah, this is something to think about. This was the discussion. I think I generally like the idea. I want people to be more informed than not. The monetary impact seems to be very minimal. So I think we're just discussing it tonight, but I guess if there were someone who wanted to put it on the agenda for the larger council meeting, this might be a good indication. Councilman Erpal?
Final comment. So, yeah, the price seems perfectly reasonable. In fact, the cost doesn't even, I mean, that's not really what we're in front of the council for, because technically the manager would have the ability to just commission
For
this if she
sure.
wanted. So it's really just the issue of, do we want this for the residents? Do we want this to be not just available, but this is now the way that will be done? Is that right?
if it were the will of the council, which I don't think we're doing that tonight, but, I mean,
But this would be a part of all the processes. not
For a
just-
variance.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, right, but I'm saying, this is not by option, if it's a variance, this sign's going up. Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah,
okay.
for
All
sure,
right.
for sure. Yes, there would be no selection on that. So I'm hearing that we're pretty much done with the discussion on the council side. Does anyone in the audience have a comment on item F4? Hearing none, I'll close it to our audience and bring it back to the council and move forward. I initially, at the beginning of the meeting, said that F5 would not be on the agenda. I have subsequently received information that we do have the applicant here, so I would love to add it back onto the agenda. So I want to add back item F5, 201 Northwest 86th Street. This is for hedges and fences. Can I please have the representative from,
Do we need a motion to do that? Or-
Yeah. Do we need a motion?
Yeah,
Perfect.
so motion, so move.
Yes.
Thank you
I'll
for
second.
keeping me tight. And Councilman Vice Mayor Perrella will second. Do I need all in favor?
I don't
Can
think
I
so.
add that back, just unilaterally? Okay, perfect.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Perfect. So we have a representative from the Corradino Group. Can I have the applicant for 201 Northwest 86th Street stepping up to this podium? And Attorney Geller, do we need any sort of swearing in or, okay. You guys will be sworn in, and then after you are, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask everybody who's gonna testify on any of the items tonight, please raise your right, stand and raise your right hand. If you're gonna be speaking to any of the zoning items. And just repeat after me, I, and state your name. Do hereby solemnly swear that the testimony I will give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God, or you may take an affirmation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And can I have your name and address for the record?
Okay, my name is Zbigniew Pietrzkiewicz. I am 201 Northwest 86th Street, the owner of the house.
Thank you so much. And this,
My wife,
oh, awesome. Nice to meet you.
Christina.
Nice to meet you, Christina. So we will go ahead and have staff's report on this item, but I do want to let all the council members know that we heard this item at the previous planning. Is perfect, so I don't need to jog your memory. I'll have Representative Ms. Lyons from the Corradino Group. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll have you give us staff's report.
Good evening, members of the board. Catherine Line with the Corradino Group, filling in for Scarlett Hammonds. Our address is 4055 Northwest 97th Avenue. The applicant is requesting a variance for a new 6-foot-high fence and/or hedge combination in the side yard setback at the property located at 201 Northwest 86th Street. The request is to locate the new fence or hedge along the side property line. The primary justification is that the barrier is needed as a buffer to screen the home from nuisance activities occurring on this property. The applicant has listed several instances in his letter of request. The home is located just south of the middle school, and the homeowners have observed altercations occurring in their side yard. At this time, the homeowner hasn't decided if the barrier will be a fence or a hedge. They're still seeking quotes from contractors before making the final decision. There's also concern that a fence could possibly impact an existing mature tree that they would want to avoid. The code does not allow fences or hedges on the side property line. There's a requirement to be set back at least 15 feet into the property. The granting of the variance approval is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the comp plan, as the proposed development is compatible with the existing residential character within the village of El Portal. Pursuant to section 17-58, the applicant shows good cause for adding privacy hedges due to the location of the home on or near the middle school with a high volume of foot traffic. The granting of the variances as presented is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning code, and staff is recommending approval. At this time, I'll turn it over to the applicant if they have any further justification.
Madam Chair, you should accept the staff report into evidence.
All right, I will accept the staff's report into evidence. And before you give us your justification, does anyone from the council have any questions for the Corradino Group about this item? Any clarification?
Yes, I do.
Councilor
Thank you,
Perrella?
Madam Chair. So you said about this side second setback on the side yard. It's within 15 feet. They will be allowed to put up a fence.
Well, that's why they're here for the variance, they're requesting.
Because
it.
they're requesting, but it's because I remember the previous conversation being like, if they go to the property line, the tree will actually be a little bit outside of the property. Is that it?
Yeah,
And
it
so-
would, the fence will affect the tree, and I think that's why they're proposing to do a hedge instead. But they
Okay.
have not decided on what type of material they want to use, if they want to do a fence or a hedge, and I think that's what they're waiting to hear from the board.
I do have an additional question. I know that they want that hedge to be 6 feet tall. Would a shorter hedge be allowed by right, or would that still be?
Considering that corner also. There's
Yeah,
a corner.
That's my main consideration. It's
They can do 6 feet or 4 feet, but they still have to come for the variance.
okay. And my sticking point with this is the safety piece, because I drive past that and it's really difficult to see past it. But does anyone else have, from the council, have a question for the representative from the Cordino Group? Ms. Lyons? Do you, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
They did provide, you said safety, they did provide the site triangle on the new set of plans when they resubmitted.
Please tell
before
me
they came
more.
back. Yeah, they submitted it, and it does not disturb the 10-foot clearance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Yes. Any questions for the applicant?
Good evening. How are you doing? So there is the existing, like, quarter hedge kind of up against the corner that is still there today, is that right?
Yeah, it's still there.
Okay, and what we're talking about essentially is another, forgetting that hedge, we're talking about a barrier on the inside of that, not extending the existing hedge where it is, which is quite close to the property line, right? Or at least the right-of-way. We're not talking about extending that hedge in the other direction. We're talking about a whole nother barrier of some kind of fence, hedge, inside of that. And the original issue was it would run into the tree. I suppose this evening, looking at it a second time, would it be agreeable or acceptable, but now we're into changing that triangle? I mean, another 5 feet really changes absolutely everything, doesn't it? So, okay, just wanted to clarify kind of the details of what, because that existing hedge is 4 feet or so. It might be a little taller, but is that right?
Yeah, we would like to have 6 feet,
Yeah.
but.
One second.
Yeah, but.
Are you having difficulties? Could you just speak into the mic, and then Councilman Lifa Ward, let me know if you can hear him.
Okay. Are we talking about the existing heads? Are they,
I just wanted clarification, and I'm clear.
okay.
Yeah, we're talking about here being closer to the house, just a side yard, not going, I mean, it's in front of it's not in front of the house.
I'm sorry.
On the in front of the facade, it's just the front side of the house, so it's in line with the property, with the wall, where the first, on the side of the house, yes.
Yeah, and the reason that you don't want to move it into where you could have it and not be in violation of the code, what, is it just for that tree?
So we would like to have a hedge of property line, the 6 feet, the height. And the concern is about the reason is concerned about the safety.
Well, we have a little feedback.
The reason is about concern, the safety or concern. So. So we have only one open space on side yard. We have only one space of side yard to play with our granddaughter, which is
just only one space to be there and be joined, of course, with us also. So this is, because it's this open area, we are very worried about her. She likes to run, running, and we just, because we are worried, what's gonna happen if something gonna go wrong? So we'll be very seriously situation. That's why we're asking about put the hedge of property line, the border line. That is only one space we can do to play and also for us.
And that's basically the area which is on the side of the building, which we can use outside, because the other side of the building is all flooded, bushes, terrible. There's nothing to do over there. And the backyard is very narrow, so there's basically no way to be outside. So,
No,
and
Well,
the
I'm sorry
only,
if I-
there is only
Councilman
one,
Perella.
I would like to say one more thing. My opinion, maybe I am wrong, if you have mark of the backyard or side yard, which is on the corner of the building, the people who won't get cut short through our backyard, like passing the crossway, and it happened before. And the last time, the person even lost the cover of his engine on our yard. I have registered it on the camera, security camera. It just he left. I don't know if he was racing or whatever, but.
Thank you. Councilman Perella?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, what he's saying is that they're trying to cut through his actual yard instead of going through the road. And I've seen it's a kind of like a tricky spot right there. And my question is, why would, because it's a side yard. It's not a front yard where they have to ask for variance. And I thought the variance was because they're trying to do it on a second setback instead of the first setback or something like that.
Yes, it's the side
So
yard.
how many feet from the road they're allowed to do it by code?
Okay, it says here that it's permitted in the secondary front setback 15 feet if less than 4 feet in height.
Right, and, but, okay, and how many feet are we talking over here from, it says 35 feet from where the property line is to the middle of the road on Northwest Second Avenue?
But we're talking about a 6-foot fence.
Right, but they're allowed on side yards, not in front yard. This is not a front yard. So I thought
No,
the
it's on
variance was
it's
because,
on the side yard.
on the side yard is also 4 feet?
86th Street is their side. Second Avenue is their,
The house is facing 86th Street.
Yes.
Go ahead.
yes, but the front is typically the narrowest part of the lot.
Hmm. That makes no sense to me.
Wait, what?
Their front yard and the houses, I mean,
The photo is on page 2 of 6.
right. Yeah, their covered porch and the entry door and everything is facing 86th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking to put something in their side yard.
Right.
I think, oh, go ahead, Councilman
And
Urban.
also, like, by the book, what she's saying is typically the narrow side is considered the front because the house is usually built deep into the property, right? So I find us, once again, having a discussion about an atypical property, not surprising it being a corner lot.
And also, it's something that we've looked at before. I do think that they're trying to do this in their side yard. I feel like, and Ms. Lyons, correct me if I'm wrong, if they were a little further, closer to their property on that side, they could do it by right. but they want it at a distance that would require it to be 4 feet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so if, yes, so they want it a little higher than it would be, and I guess that's for, yes.
Sorry.
Just state your, did you state your name before?
No, Peter
Name and-
Vichkevich. I
Thank
just
you,
want to
Peter.
clarify a
Sure.
couple of things here.
Sure.
Sorry for the feedback. First, to answer your question, Councilmember Perella, I don't know how many feet from the road. I'm not sure because it's not really a from the road issue, as I understand it. It's a from the property line issue. So as I understand from, or as we understand from this diagram, it has, and from the folks at the Codino Group, it has the current 4-foot height allowance has to be 15 feet from the property line. So there's some, how many ever feet, I don't know, 5, 7 feet from the road is the property line, and then 15 more feet, which unfortunately they lose the tree because it's on the other side of the tree. And what my parents are asking is, instead of the additional 15 feet, which means they lose half the open space that they have, that they're permitted to plant a hedge. And I think we ruled out the fence at the last meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, you weren't there. But that they're allowed to plant the hedge on the property line, basically. So it's still 5-ish feet or 7 feet, whatever, before the road. So I just wanted to clarify that.
They could do it if they moved the location of the hedge, but they would prefer not to so that they can have more space to play with. Yes, the oak.
Beautiful tree, yeah.
Exactly. So that's the entirety of what we're looking at, and I think, Councilman Erbaum, do you have one more thing?
Yes, Vice Mayor Perella, from the diagram, it looks like from the from where they're asking the hedge to be in this variance, it's then 35 feet to the center of the avenue.
And my big concern last meeting was the visibility, and also that there is no sidewalk, and we have a tremendous number of young children traversing those streets, and I do believe that a hedge, if placed too far out, definitely encourages, and I know you don't want them walking on your lawn for sure, but I do think it proposes an enhanced risk to pedestrians that would be going back and forth in that area. And I know that the existing 4-foot hedge, I've had visibility issues. So my concerns are really safety. I definitely see your point and your desire to preserve the tree. Number one, I think that's important, and also have more space to play with your granddaughter. I think that's very important. But I do know that part of the residents that we have to consider as well are children who go to that school. And what hazard does that pose to them trying to cross that street to get to home? So I think about that as well. But I think we have a good grasp of the issues, and I think at this point, it's just time to make a decision on it. So does someone open to the audience? I forgot that. I don't want to leave you guys out. Does anyone in the audience have a comment about item F5? All right. There are none, so I'll bring it back to the council. I was wondering if anyone closed public hearing. I'll bring it back to the council, and I'll ask if anyone has a motion on this item.
Madam Chair, I'd like
Sure.
to make a motion on this item for, I'd like to make a motion on this item for hedges at the setback area to include the tree. Now I'm thinking about size of the hedge, hold on. So hedges at the setback area to include the tree. You guys are asking for 6. I'll stick with the 6. 6-foot hedges to the setback area to include the tree, Madam Chair.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Awesome. Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Roll call, Member Lightfoot Ward. I'm sorry.
Can you repeat your motion, please, Mr. Mayor?
Motion for hedges 6 feet at the setback level to include the tree for the granddaughter.
All right, and that was seconded by Councilman Erbaum, and it's up to you. First up. Yeah, vote on Mr. Mayor's motion.
Madam Chair, if we're all clear. Okay. Move.
Member Lightfoot Ward,
Yes.
Member Erbaum,
Yes.
Member Nickerson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella,
Yes.
Chair Martin.
No, and it's completely
4 to 1.
inconsequential. Congratulations.
4 to 1, it's gonna go to council.
Thank you very much.
Remember now, we have to go to full council with this, so you're gonna have to contact the clerk and the planning and zoning Corradino group, so that we can get that set up, because you have to do the ad and all of that to bring it to full council. Full council is the last step. Okay?
Awesome, congratulations, guys. We have the applicant for item F6 at 355 Northeast 86th Street. Step up to the podium and please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Ash Spahi. My address is 355 Northeast 86th Street.
Thank you so much. Can I have staff's report on this item?
Good evening. The applicant, Sherwood 355 LLC, is requesting site plan approval for a new single-family home at the property located at 355 Northeast 86th Street. The applicant proposes a complete teardown of the current home to allow for construction of a new residential 2-story, 2,060 square foot home. The new house will have 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a single carport and a pool. The lot is 5,139 square feet, and single-family homes are permitted in this zoning district. An administrative adjustment of 4 feet is requested for the pool setback from the home, permitting 11 feet where 15 feet is required, and a variance for 100 feet is requested, permitting 2,156 square feet, equivalent to 42% lot coverage where 40% is permitted. Pursuant to section 17-53, the applicant shows good cause for compliance with the land use regulations and the development standards of this chapter and of chapter 24. The applicant has stated the plans will be submitted to Miami-Dade County Fire and Rescue Department for review and approval, and that they are committed to complying with the fire department review regulations when the full set of plans are ready. The granting of the site plan approval as presented is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the comp plan, as the proposed development architecture is compatible with the existing residential architectural character within the village of El Portal. Therefore, approval is recommended for the site plan and variance to allow for the construction of this 2-story residence as provided in the staff report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lyons. Does any members of the council or the committee have a question for the Corradino group?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So they're looking to add, only 2% to the existing area of the house? So they're adding more, like 2% more?
It comes up to about 100 square feet, and I think they actually have a proposal to eliminate that this evening that they're bringing forward, but that's the variance request.
Because I think you said it was 40%?
42%,
They're looking
yeah.
to add 42 and a 2% extra
Correct.
to make it 42?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this property. I've seen it many times because it's the former vice mayor's property. When I first came on the council a long time ago, our vice mayor was Miss Linda Marcus, and this is Linda Marcus's old house, and it definitely would need a full renovation, if not a tear down. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I know that we have it open to the council, but I think I hear from the Corradino group that you guys have resolved the 100 square foot overage.
The overage is mainly lot coverage, so we do have an additional proposal.
If I can speak, my name is Brett Moss, 152 West Matchda Drive in Key Biscayne.
Okay.
I'm the architect, and the lot coverage included a concrete pad on part of the driveway area that really is not needed. The driveway is 9 feet 9 inches wide, and it's gravel. So we have a pervious material. We added a little bit of concrete right before you enter the house. It's 127 square feet. It's not really needed. So we can remove that and just make it all pervious driveway. all the way
Great.
through.
Is that amenable? Does that solve the issue? Oh,
Yes.
well, great. I guess, I know we still have to be here because it's a new site plan, but I guess this solves.
And also the adjustment for the setback for the pool as well.
Ah, okay. And that was 11 feet
11
instead
feet.
of 15? Correct, correct. All right, so you handled one issue. I don't know if you can handle that other one. But I'll bring it back to the council to see if anyone else has a comment about it. Councilman Erbaum?
Yeah, curious to know what the reason for the variance for the pool setback change? What's the, is it a simple request? Or is there a
For
need?
the setback or for the lot
Oh,
coverage?
no, I'm talking about with the pool, we're talking about adjustment to the setback, correct?
Correct.
That is part of the variance that's being requested.
No,
Is it-
that's an adjustment, an
It's ju-
administrative adjustment.
Okay, so okay, so it's not a requirement of a variance?
No.
It's simply, okay, all right, that's what I wanted to be clear
Yes.
about. Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions from the committee? Councilwoman Lightfoot Ward?
I think it's pretty. The plan's pretty.
Thank you.
The impact is what I'm more concerned about. You know where you are. You're in El Portal.
Correct.
You're about to build a mansion in El Portal. That's your constitutional right to do. At the same time, I'm more concerned with what we've seen already. People build up, but they don't live in it. They build it to sell it. We just being honest, right? They build it to sell it. It's pretty. What damage, if any, to the neighboring houses from it? Okay, because it is bigger. It's huge. It's bigger than what is already there. Okay, that's the only thing I concern myself with, because it is right smack in the middle of the neighborhood. It is going to impact pricing. It is going to be something that looks like we that have been here for 31 years or more are out of step. Have you thought about the preservation of this village? Or have you simply gone modernization on them without respect? Talk to
Yes.
me.
Yeah,
Talk to us.
thank you for asking that question. When we went to the site, we found how unique the site was, and Ash, our client, asked us to come and take a look at it. And the first thing we noticed was obviously driving to the site, the large trees in the neighborhood and the fabric of the characteristics that make it so unique in El Portal. And when we showed up to it, the site itself had large live oak trees. And the first thing that he said to us is, I want to preserve these oak trees as much as possible. And that's what got us so interested in the project, because a lot of developers or anybody who's building a house or clients of ours, they just want to flatten everything and build something large on it. And that's not what Ash, who's building it for themselves, that they wanted to preserve this uniqueness of it. So we had 3 goals. We wanted to preserve and enhance the beauty of the site and the natural elements. We want to integrate and be sensitive to the characteristics of the neighborhood. And we wanted to connect and merge the interior spaces with the exterior spaces. We feel that, it's a relatively modest house. It's much larger than what was on there. It's about 886 square feet more than what was there before. But it is relatively modest in size. It's a 2,250 square foot home, 2 stories. And some of the specific points that I wanted to point out is that in preserving the natural beauty is really based around the live oak trees that are on the site. One, we built the house 22 inches above the ground. One of the reasons why is we wanted to be very sensitive to the foundations around the trees so that we can put point foundations in certain positions instead of digging up the ground and hurting the roots of the trees. We also wanted the house to be designed to emulate a tree house. And that's kind of why you see this look of this box, of this kind of wooden box that's kind of floating up in the air within the trees, to be among the trees. Also, the exterior landscape around the house, you traditionally see grass and things like that. We wanted to keep it more of the forest look that was already there, and keeping rocks, ferns, ground covers underneath. And the benefit also is that it's more sustainable from a landscape, less maintenance on the landscape as well. And we also incorporate some built-in planters so we can have plants growing from the actual structure down to soften up as much as we can the size of the project. The integrating into the characteristics of the neighborhood, one of the things we did is we broke the house into kind of 2 separate volumes to kind of bring the scale of it to a smaller scale as much as we can, instead of having one large facade, breaking up into 2. One of the other things is we exceeded the side setbacks so right now it requires allowed 5-foot setbacks. We actually reduced one side by 4 inches, but the other side by 5 foot 8 inches to pull it away from the neighbors' houses as much as we can on the side as well, exceeding those setbacks. We incorporated kind of the overhangs and the porches around the house. It adds depth to the facade while providing protection from the sun and the rain. And the wooden screens also offer additional protection, but also provide a layer of transparency where light can filter through the screens as well, both night and daytime. And then the driveway we already spoke about. We wanted to reduce the width of the driveway down to 9 feet 9 inches and make it completely permeable, so it's almost driving through like kind of the forest to get to the house, to kind of again soften that and tie into the feel of that characteristics of the neighborhood there. And then in connecting the exterior and interior spaces, providing larger openings where somebody sitting inside can be really connected to the landscape on the outside. We're looking at the interior floor finishes where the floor finish on the bottom floor is slate stone on the exterior and interior to tie into the earth and the ground, where the second floor is all white oak to tie into the trees, and using some Miami oolite around the pool to represent the limestone found on the Atlantic Ridge in Miami-Dade County, and ensuring that all the rooms are accessible to the porches, really to allow people to go out, the client to go inside and outside and enjoy the landscape. So that was kind of what we were looking at, and some of the points. I can go on and on, but
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Does that answer your question? One second. Does that answer your question?
They did everything but talk about parking.
Okay.
They did everything but talk about parking.
Are you
Come
going to say
on,
something about
guys.
parking?
Come on, guys.
Go ahead.
I mean, first to touch up on what you were asking, when I contracted Brett to help me with the design of the house, I told him I don't want a mansion, that I wanted a tree house. I wanted something that blends with the neighborhood. I don't want it to be an eyesore, something that sticks out, that's a white box. I hate those, absolutely. So that's why we kind of came up with this design. For the driveway or parking, we do have our driveway area, and we do have part of the swale, I guess, that people would use, but we have a carport for cars that would be visiting our property or coming to, when we're living there.
You know where I'm going, right?
What do you mean?
You know where I'm going, right?
We have enough space for 2
Where are we
cars to
going?
park
You have enough-
on the property.
Yeah, but you have enough space for a lot of folk coming in. I'm very serious about the parking, because we have approved a property that they wanted to change, and when they have events in these places, it becomes a problem with parking. It becomes a problem with us driving on the streets.
Yeah.
Okay, so give that some thought. Sounds like a good plan that you have. I was more concerned about how it will blend. You already told me that. You're gonna keep the trees, you're gonna do all that. Now, the only thing you didn't think about is that property being that size is gonna have a parking situation. I didn't
Well-
hear anything about parking.
At that point, there are valet companies that you can contract that go park cars.
It's a challenge because this site specifically has such large trees in the front. It made it very hard to, that's one of the reasons also why we have such a minimal size driveway to put in there. So it is a challenge because yes, you want people to park, but then you don't want to have this huge driveway with all these cars parked out front.
Definitely not, but you plan on using this for your
Personal
personal residence. So I don't.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't know if the discussion about parking makes that more believable, less believable. Councilman Erbaum, do you have a comment on that? Or on any of it? I know that you had a comment. Not necessarily on parking. I know that you raised your hand a while ago.
No, but I think my question was answered.
Okay.
And so, but as far as parking, so I mean, we're actually just trying to discourage parking on swales.
Yeah.
So I think the design, fits there. So I thought I heard, anyway, the square footage sounds perfectly reasonable, and so.
Perfect. Councilman Perrella, I see your finger.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair. Let me, and this is for staff, because I was looking at the Dade County setbacks, and for a pool, it's 7.5 feet from the rear property line. Is it here that is 15 or 10?
Yes, your code.
Okay,
is
our
15
code.
feet, yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. I don't think we have any more comments from the council. I'll open it up for the public to comment. Does anyone have a comment about item F6? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back. Oh, is there one? No worries. You're a little delayed. You faked me out a little bit. Step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Edward Odobashian, 400 Northeast 87th Street. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
And it's a very interesting design. I think that it feels very uncharacteristic with Sherwood Forest. I know that we've had a bit more of this design. Let me just move this up a little bit so I don't lean over. In El Portal over time, and it seems to be eroding at the historical nature and of like the buildings in our neighborhood. I think this would be probably the first one of this kind. I think this has been referred to as like a sugar cube before in other neighborhoods. I don't know. As far as this being a precedent, I would really be worried that more historic homes or older homes in Sherwood Forest would also suffer this kind of fate over time and become more like Coconut Grove, which we don't really want to go in that direction, I think. That's my concern with this. Maybe there's some other compromise that we can make to make this work, but it's not fitting the vibe.
I think that's a valid concern. Thank you for your comment. Councilman Erbaum.
Am I able to comment? Or do we need to bring it
You
back?
still can, and then I'll
Okay.
kick it back.
All right. So I'll just tell the gentleman, I actually, in theory, agree wholeheartedly. In fact, when you started a statement, I was thinking of Coconut Grove, because there are these 0-lot townhouses packed in together. It becomes not just cookie cutter, but like it's the whole block becomes one solid cube. So that's why I was, as the architect was describing, a lot of those concerns of mine were actually alleviated. The first of which being the smaller overall footprint on the property. So we're not talking about a 0-lot sugar cube, right? Additionally, I am genuinely impressed with the concept of the foundation. So the way I see it, the future of building Miami is all stilts and these types of foundations. A foundation sitting on the ground, I think, is a thing of the past. I meant to bring the Biscayne Times tonight. Everyone should check that out. It's got a map of 6 feet of ocean rise in it. Find out what your personal situation is. It's quite interesting to look at. And so, additionally, like the front of the property seems to have a lot of windows. So just to speak to the residents concerned, we actually went through this in detail years ago with an update to the architecture guidelines for new construction in El Portal. So through that process, we essentially established that there would not be a prohibition of modern design in El Portal, but that any modern design would still need to, find a way to fit the aesthetic of the village. One of those ways was to have enough window area on the exterior of the building so you don't have monolithic walls, for example. So I do share every concern you enumerated, and I have to say that when Councilperson Martin asked me my question, the architect had actually answered almost all of my questions. So while I may also not wish to see, truly modern architecture in El Portal, considering that it, just it could fall into the category of trending versus something else. So in terms of future property values, whatnot, also depends on, you know, how these things are able to be maintained, whether or not they become derelict properties in the future, fourth, fifth owners, for example. So, but I do feel that this design answers a great many of those questions, and I certainly take to heart the additional concern that residents of Sherwood Forest have about this specifically. I'll just say that there's not really anything we could do to prohibit a modern design. There's just, there's guidelines in place to accomplish some manner of, you know, coexistence and compromise, so.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you so much, Councilman Erbaum. Does anyone else in the audience have a comment about this item? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Scott Kobrick, 8525 Northeast 4th Avenue Road. Agreed with both the resident and Anders. I think that the, you know, some of the things that were concerns with that were alleviated and I think are great, such as the foundation, et cetera. Just to Eddie's point, I think that just a potential solution, I guess, it's just a little bit, I think the timing is interesting here because the beginning of the meeting was about a historic preservation board. And then there's, you know, one of the first of its kind in the Sherwood Forest neighborhood, which would set precedents, et cetera. So I definitely think that there's several elements that are great with this, the lot coverage, et cetera. One thing I wonder is to be considered is I think is what people might have a little bit of an issue with is the style. And is there some sort of guidelines or anything prior to, you know, a finalized historic preservation board or anything that could be reviewed with reference to that? I know that, you know, some of the a lot of the homes in El Portal are sort of maybe mission or Mediterranean, you know, style. Is there elements that could be, you know, provided to this sort of two-story, you know, what seems to be more of a cube that could make it very similar in terms of its space, in terms of its layout, et cetera, but maybe more in keeping with the historic design of the neighborhood. Maybe that means some elements that are added to the exterior of the design, et cetera.
I completely understand what you're saying. I think historically for this body, it's been our position that we don't want to get into the business of prescribing aesthetics or style because those things are so very unique. And at a certain point, if you do purchase your property, there is a point where usurping an individual's rights to be unique in whatever their taste is, I think it's just something that we have been reluctant to do. Now, whether or not under the auspices of a historic preservation board, there is some sort of formal designation that we would like to go through as it relates to certain areas or certain properties. I think that that's something that that board and Councilman Perrella can look at. But as far as getting down into the minutia of, and not minutia, just getting down to the point of, well, I like this or I do not like this, we have shied away from. However, based on professional consultation from our planners, we have been advised that a way to cut down the impact of just having this huge concrete box is to have there be a lot of windows, reasonable amount of setback, permeable surfaces, emphasis on preservation of trees. So elements that we can consider that we feel comfortable considering that will not negatively impact the general feel of the neighborhood, but will not get to the point of usurping or infringing on an individual's right to have a different taste than what we would like. And I also want to I also want to say, most of the people that live in Sherwood Forest live there for a reason. And it is not to tear down these houses, because they generally love how this house looks. So I think the danger of it looking significantly different or like a Coconut Grove is very slim. I think you will have one-offs, which with anything, where that style will not speak to that person. But I do think that there are tons of people in Sherwood Forest that live there for that reason and preserve these houses meticulously. And what we can look at is that great presentation that Placervia showed us of these houses that were erected 100 years ago that very much so still look similar. So I think if you come to El Portal, by and large, you are of the mindset that you want to preserve things, and you go through painstaking care and cost, because it is expensive to be an original and to refurbish. So I want to try to allay your fears on that in our efforts to be really, really fair in this situation. We definitely don't want to put our own personal preferences into it, because I think Sherwood Forest is gorgeous. And if it stayed that way for another 100 years, I think it would be excellent. But I have to take my own personal thought out of it. But I take your point, and I think Councilman Perella, with his Historic Preservation Board that I hope that he proposes, and it's on the next council meeting, I think that they are able to tackle things and maybe get the homes designated in a way that might preserve them in a way that that is comforting to those that appreciate that. Councilman Perella, do you have a final comment on this item?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Well, we're still in baby steps with that preservation board, if anything. And even though if a property is designated historic, there are ways that the developers and architects will find to tear it down, being unsafe, structure, and this and that. And there's been the cases in many municipalities. I know that for a fact. So a question that I have basing these into, taking into consideration the two residents that spoke about it, and I was gonna actually ask you that at the beginning. Mentioning materials, and you mentioned limestone. Will you consider doing like the columns and limestone, bringing in more natural feeling to the facade of the house, the facade of the house? I don't know, and this will go to staff. Is limestone, because I know the house, the entrance of the house, like the little gate is holding on to limestone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to touch even that limestone? Isn't that?
That I'm not sure. I'd have to find out. Look into that.
Okay, because that is an issue that I think it's actually Dade County. You're not, because I know of houses, there's one in Morningside that had a fireplace, and they could not tear it down. They turned down the whole house, but they couldn't touch the limestone.
Well, they do
Councilman
have to go
Perella could be,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
No, they do have to go to Miami-Dade County, Durham, and Fire for approval, so they will be looking at this, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Councilman Perella is giving you a little hot take on what might be in your future. Do I have a motion on this item at all? I think we've covered a lot. And what will be your motion to accept staff's recommendation? Okay, do I have a second?
Second that, Madam Chair.
Can I have a roll call on that?
Roll call, Member Lightfoot Ward. Member, yeah, I heard you. Member Erbaum,
Yes.
Member Nickerson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella,
Yes.
Chair Martin,
Yes.
5-0.
All righty, congratulations, guys.
And
Mr. Mayor's gonna let you know next steps. Listen to this part.
Next steps, make sure you contact them there, the Corradino Group, for your next steps, so that you can appear on a future council meeting. And
Yes, guys, don't let this go to waste. All right, we'll move on to item F7. That is 9-0.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
really
go ahead.
quickly, just want to give us a little shout out. He doesn't say anything, he's humble, but that's a councilman from Key Biscayne. So
Hey, Councilman.
Want to give a shout out to him.
I knew you looked familiar.
So he knows how this goes over here. Thank you.
All righty, so we'll move to F7. Can I have the applicant for 9001 Northeast First Avenue step up to the podium? And please state your name and address for the record. But I think you know how this goes, because I think we've seen it before.
Alberto Fernandez, 9001 Northeast First Avenue.
All right, can I have staff's report on this item?
Good evening. The applicant is requesting a variance for planted hedges after the fact within the 25-foot front principal setback, which does not comply with section 24-B15G2, a walls, fences, and hedges standard of the Code of Ordinances. The primary justification is that the Fernandez family wanted to add 34-inch podocarpus shrubs in the front yard to provide a buffer and beautification. The shrubs will only be 34 inches high, in which the height of the podocarpus will still allow visibility for vehicles and pedestrians at the intersection. The code does not allow fences or hedges on the side property line. There is a requirement to be set back at least 15 feet into the property. The granting of the variance approval is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the comp plan, as the proposed development is compatible with the existing residential character within the village of El Portal. Pursuant to section 17-58, the applicant shows good cause for adding privacy hedges due to the location of the home with a high volume of foot traffic. The granting of the variance as presented is in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning code. Therefore, staff is recommending approval.
Thank you so much. I'll accept staff's recommendation into the record, and I will open it up to the committee. Does anyone have a question for the representative from Corradino Group? Councilwoman Lightfoot Ward.
Sounds like you just said they are in compliance with everything that is necessary.
Well, they are in, as far as staff's analysis, they are in compliance with the variance, the terms for the variance.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But they're not currently in compliance.
They're not currently in compliance.
They erected it in
Yes.
violation of the
Okay.
code.
Correct.
That's where we are.
Yes.
Okay. Because they didn't do it right.
Correct. This is an after the fact.
Okay.
Yes.
This is after the fact that we're looking at it and saying grace over it or something like that.
Correct.
But in the meantime, they are following, they're okay with the code. It's just a process the way they did it. They didn't get the,
No, they're not in compliance with the code. That's why they're requesting the variance. But we're recommending approval as long as they keep the hedge at 3 feet.
but right now, it's not stationed to be at 3 feet, right? It's not stated.
It's not stated, no.
Okay, okay.
No.
Now we know where we are. It's really a little thing, but they didn't process properly.
Correct.
All right.
Councilman Urban.
My only question is, it could be for whoever, but why are we thinking that the hedges are going to remain? There we go. Here's my question. How long have they already been in place?
Well, to start, I was here like a year ago, if you guys remember. I applied for another variance to do a front yard fence, a 4 feet fence. It was denied, and this very council recommended that one of the reasons I wanted to do some kind of fence in my front is because I have little kids, privacy, some type of security, and you guys recommended why don't you substitute with some hedges?
I remember all of that. I'm saying, so how long have the hedges been there?
Oh, about 5, 6, 7 months.
Okay, so.
I've been applying for this process for 4 months.
So currently, they're still 34 inches?
Yeah, oh no, yeah, I have my landscaper goes
Okay.
twice a month and they keep it at 3 feet.
Okay.
They never go up more than 3 feet. And I have a lot of experience with podocarpus because in my backyard, they're
It's
way
prevalent,
taller.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you see
they
it.
can grow if you don't have it under control.
You see
definitely.
them everywhere? Okay.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Okay, and does anyone else have a question? Mr. Mayor.
Quick comment, if I could, may, Madam Chair. Just wanted to say, I pass by the house frequently. The hedges don't, and Vice Mayor Perella lives really close to the house, so I know you can speak on this, but with the hedges, even when you're walking from far away, you're approaching the house, it's not like the hedges are dense and you can't see the house. Like the house is very visible, even from far away. They're not the type of hedges to where if you're trying to picture hedges like what you would see at like a old house in England or something like that. It's not like that. They're a different type of hedge where there's a lot of visibility through the hedges.
And they're not tall, they're not that tall at all, so.
Yeah, they're 3 feet. I presented pictures when I applied for the variance. I don't know if it is
Yeah, we have the
available
pictures.
to you guys. They've been 3 feet forever. I kind of like had a little discussion with code enforcement why they call it even hedges, because they're not even that together. So, but I said, you know, it's a technicality. You still have to go through a variance. And my street is a no outlet street. So a lot of people, they walk their dogs, they ride bikes, and a lot of people, they tend to confuse the right of way, where you can have your dogs do their necessity, with private property. So sometimes they will go into the private property and, you know, have their pets going around and, you know. So in order to avoid that and have some kind of visible stoppage, I planted these little porta carpets, and also they also beautify the property so they come in line with what I was trying to accomplish with all the landscaping using natural plants.
Yeah, I think it's because eventually, 2-3 years, they will be a hedge, I think is why, but that's needed, that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, they're slow growers, but they will finally come together, and if you don't maintain them, they're gonna grow to 5, 6, 8 feet. So it's.
This is true. My question for the Corradino Group is, in the approval of this variance, we can include in there that those hedges must be 3 feet tall,
Correct. That's what we're
maximum.
recommending.
And if it's not, then he would be in violation.
Correct.
Correct? I have a serious issue with, I guess, I feel like when we say, well, these hedges are different, or we set a precedent where there really is no standard as far as like what is going to be allowed and what is not going to be allowed. So my belief is that if it's in violation of the code, then barring something that is very, very unique, then it's a violation and shouldn't be allowed. But I'm only one person on the council. So with that being said, Councilman Urban?
I'm sure we'll open up to the public, but
Sure.
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, perfect. Can I open it up to our guest? Does anyone have a comment about item F7, that's 9001 Northeast First Avenue? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council. Does anyone have a motion?
Yes, so I would move to accept the recommendation with the language of, to keep it uniform, not to exceed 4 feet.
Oh, he said 3.
I understand, but I would like to address the same concern you have, and I believe that would address that concern, because most any other variance that we do like this is going to be a 4-foot whatever, just like, as discussed earlier this evening even. So that's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Roll call, Member Lightfoot Ward.
No.
Member Urban.
Yes.
Member Nickerson.
I believe everybody should get an up or down vote. No.
Member, Vice Chair Perella.
No.
Chair Martin.
No.
4-1. Motion fails.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, may I play a motion, please?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to have them have the hedges not to surpass 3 feet.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Roll call, Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Member Urban.
Yes.
Member Nickerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella.
No.
Chair Martin.
No.
3-2, motion passes.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Next steps, is the mayor going to announce the next steps?
Yeah, you have to pay for the ad. Contact the Corradino Group, and you might want to speak to the clerk also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move forward with item F8. That, can I have the applicant for 66 Northwest 87th Street step up to the podium? Do we still have, did we lose someone? 66 Northwest 87th Street. That might be, we might have switched who was not going to be here. Yeah. This one is F8, 66 Northwest 87th Street for the garage conversion. Maybe that would have been the one that is not going to be here tonight. So since we don't have the applicant, we are going to move forward. F9 has also been stricken, so we'll move right to F10. Let me just make sure that there is no applicant for F9. Is there anyone here for 456 Northeast 88th Street? All right, hearing none, I'll move forward to F10. Can I have the applicant for 205 Northeast 86th?
Just for the record, the ones that you, there's nobody here that you're not taking action on, you should just have a quick motion to defer them to the next meeting, otherwise they could be considered denied.
Thank you so much. So do I get to call that motion? Okay, motion to defer item F8 and F9.
Second.
66 Northwest 87th Street and 456 Northeast 88th Street respectively. So second, Madam Clerk, can I have the roll?
Roll call, Member Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Member Erbaum.
Yes.
Member Nickerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Perrella.
Yes.
Chair Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes 5.
Awesome. So we are on to F10. Can I have the applicant for 205 Northeast 86th Street step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
Ricardo Lima, 205 Northeast 86th Street.
Thomas Pulliam, 205 Northeast 86th Street.
Thank you. May I have staff's report on this
Sorry,
item?
just one thing. Can we wait for all the council people to be present?
You only got one.
Yeah.
We have a majority.
If it makes you feel better, we definitely can. I'm sure Councilman Perrella will be back in a second. I don't want to take a 2-minute official break because then everyone will disperse.
We also made printouts that we'd like to
Sure,
share.
hand them out in the interim.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. All right, now that Councilman Perrella is back, can I have staff's report on this item, please?
Good evening. The applicant, Tom Pulliam, is requesting a variance for a new 4-foot-high wall and fence combination in the principal setback at the property located at 205 Northeast 86th Street. The request is to locate the new wall along the front property line. The primary justification is that the wall and fence are needed as a visual buffer to screen the home from nuisance activities occurring on this property. The applicant has listed several instances in his letter of request. The code does not allow fences in the front setback unless it is limited to 4 feet and made of coral rock and is approved through a variance. The applicant proposed the wall to be made of coral rock and the fence will be a continuation of the wood side yard fences. The intent is to fully enclose the front yard. After review, staff is recommending denial of the variance request.
I will accept staff's recommendation staff's report into the record. I'll open it to the committee members first.
I do have an objection to that report. There's an inaccuracy.
Sure, go ahead.
As you all recall, we were here last time, and our whole case was based on safety, intrusion, that type of stuff. We heard the feedback. We took all of that out. We're solely basing our proposal based on the peculiar specifications of our lot and house and the uniqueness of that relative to adjacent properties. I noticed the staff report has an error once again where they are including the previous information, which is not in the letter of intent that was submitted or the evidence. So it calls into question the rationale for denial as well.
Thank you for the clarification. I'll go ahead and open it up to the committee members. Mr. Mayor, I think you had a comment.
Quick question, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to understand why. So, yeah, I know it was Ms. Hammonds. It wasn't you. But okay, so previously it was recommended approval now it's recommending denial.
Correct.
Is
And
there an adjustment? or-
I did ask Ms. Hammonds this evening why the recommended change, and she said that the planning board denied the application in April with specific reasons for denial. The board discussion was not information that the reviewer had when preparing the first report. So now that it's part of the record and the reviewer needed to consider all information, the recent submittal included more information regarding front yard depth, and it is emphasized how the applicant is fully capable of fencing in the majority of the front yard within the requirements of the code. I believe her analysis was that because the home was set back so far, 75 feet, that they would be able to meet that 25-foot setback and still have enough front yard space. So I think that was her reason for change.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Madam Chair, is this the identical request that was previously denied? Because we may be needing to talk about a motion for reconsideration then. Is this the same, or is there a change?
Well, I'm hearing from the applicant that there is a change as far as the grounds within which that they used for justifying this matter. So I don't know if that's a significant enough change to,
The grounds are addressed to the discretion of the council within what the law provides. The question is the request identical? For instance, on an item just a little bit ago, there was a motion for a 4-foot hedge that failed. But then another motion was brought for something different, a 3-foot hedge that passed. That wasn't the same request. So the argument, I mean, they're free to argue anything they want to argue or disagree with the staff report or anything else. The question is the request identical? If it was, then that's not a bar to them proceeding. It just requires, in that case, if it's the same thing, it just requires a motion for reconsideration, which has to be brought by somebody on the prevailing side. If there is a change in what they're requesting, then they can come back and ask for something different than what was denied, and that doesn't require a motion for reconsideration.
from what I recall, this is the same request. I'll let our reps from the Corodino Group let me know if that's correct, but I do think that this is the same request.
I believe the applicant is stating that it's a different request. I didn't do the first review, so from what I gathered, I think they might have pushed the fence back. Is
We
that
did,
correct?
so also what you said in the staff report about it being on the property line is not correct either. That was the original proposal. We are seeking, as per our letter of intent, that we outline, we're seeking an equitable use of our private area. By looking at the different setbacks, by code, standard code is for the rear setback, 5 feet. So we thought that would be an equitable compromise, and that's what we were bringing forward this time. But per the staff report and what's written and prepared.
No, the staff report clearly says that you're enclosing the front of the property 5 feet inside of the property line. So that's what you're proposing for this request, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes, so it is in the staff report.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Madam Chair, let me then ask if, I think the applicant stated that they've changed what they're seeking, but that needs to be clear on the record. Is it your statement, sir, that what you're applying for tonight is different than what you, not the reasons why or what's equitable, those are arguments, but is what you're asking to do?
Yes, we are putting forward something different, but in all honesty, we feel like this is really like a negotiation in terms of what's allowed and what's in bounds and what's not bounds, so.
But what is the difference between what you asked last
what is
time
the
and this time?
change?
5 feet from the property line.
You've moved it 5 feet from where it was
No, per the
before?
letter of intent and staff report, it's 20 feet 5 feet setback instead of 25. Rather than the property line would be 0 feet setback.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following. Could you explain that one more time, Mr. Pulliam, just for the record?
It's in the written documentation, but sure, it's 5 feet from the property line.
And what was the previous one?
At the property line.
Okay, so you've pushed it back 5 feet further
Correct.
from what you asked last time?
Yes.
Okay, in that case, Madam Chair, in that this is a different application seeking different relief. There's a 5-foot difference in what was requested. It does not require a motion for reconsideration. It comes to you as a new application, and you may consider it.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. I appreciate the efforts of being thorough. So where were we? We had received the staff report, and we had it open to the committee. So Councilman Erbaum.
Yes, so so the map of boundary and topographic survey where the two lines are outlined here, if they were proposing, so this is a hypothetical, if they were proposing to put a 4-foot, enclose the property with a 4-foot fence, we'll call it a fence, even though it'd be a wall, coral, what have you, the point being that the property enclosed in the front with a 4-foot barrier, okay? If they did that back at the primary boundary line, which is 20 feet, further back than what they're asking for, would they need a variance? It's still a variance because we don't enclose properties, correct?
It's not permitted within the 25-foot front setback. That's why they're here.
But if they did it at that primary line, it would be permitted?
Well, just at the setback
No, they
line,
would-
it's permitted, not at the.
Because it's enclosing the property, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's my question.
There is no variance or code about enclosing the property. It's only about the setback.
About having fences in front of the house.
Yeah,
This is what you outlined.
Within the primary
Within
setback.
the 25-foot
Yeah.
setback.
So if he pushed that, if he decided that he wanted to push that all the way back out of that primary setback, like he could erect this and not necessarily have to come to us for a variance, correct?
Correct.
At
Yes.
6 feet, I can.
Yes, but your desire is not to enclose that much of your front yard, right? Because you want to use it for recreation. That's your position.
Correct, and by the math, when you look at the adjacent properties, which their site plans are included in there, and we have larger printouts, both have much larger enclosed backyards relative to front yards. We are actually losing a fourth of our property by going with the staff's recommendation of keeping it at the 25-foot setback, which makes our front yard 47 feet, which is still smaller than both of the neighbors' backyards, which are 60 and 65 feet.
Okay. Councilman Erbaum.
Yes, so, what I'm looking at here from looking at the, satellite and, driving by the property, it seems clear that if the structure, if the home were moved up to that primary boundary line, they, without any issue at all, would very well be able to put up a 6-foot fence at the, at the outer edge of that property extending to the property line. So assuming the home were not in the position that it is in, deep into the property, but pulled forward to that primary line, like we really wouldn't be here because they'd put up a 6-foot fence and they'd have their backyard.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but that will be at 45 feet, not 25.
It would be at 4, okay, thank you for that clarification, okay.
Any other questions for the applicant or for the Corradino Group? Councilman Lightfoot Ward.
I'm confused, I don't mind telling you. Is it right or is it wrong what they're asking for?
They're requesting the variance because they're within the 25 feet front setback. They only want to do 5 feet. So because of that, they're here before you asking for the variance.
But additionally here, they would be, assuming we reverse the denial of recommendation and approved the application for the variance, am I incorrect in thinking that this would essentially now be the essentially single property in El Portal? Well, no, I guess it wouldn't be all by itself, would it be? So, okay.
Okay. Last but not least, before my colleague interrupted, is he asking something that is reputable, or are we doing something completely different? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a gentleman says, listen, for the benefit of, I would like a variance on this. It is not too much. It is not too little. I want the variance. That's all I'm trying to figure out. Why are we making it bigger than it is? If this is what the resident wants, are you in objection to it? And if so, why? And if not, are we okay with this this request?
Staff's recommendation is denial because his front yard, he's set back 75 feet. So staff is recommending denial because staff feels that he has adequate space if he were to set back his fence 25 feet as permitted by code.
You want
By
him,
right.
you want him back at 25 feet instead of,
That's what the code
the
requires.
code says they want it back 25 feet because it is so big.
No,
The front
the
yard.
front yard.
Because it is so big.
The code requires 25 feet, yes.
So the situation here is what he's asking for would not be in compliance with code.
Correct.
And you're trying to
Yes.
make it in compliance with code.
We're not trying to make it in compliance. You're going to approve a variance to vary him from the code.
Yeah. A variance, it would be doing something outside of the norm. But, yeah, if he went beyond that 25 foot, he would be able to do this by right. But, yeah, that's what we're considering. I think Councilman Perella, you had a question? Comment? Okay, that was Councilman Erbaum. Okay, yes, so for me, when I look at the reasons why you would approve a variance, it says, one of them is special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not generally applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings. And I think the dispositive part of that statement is in the same district. So I do think that there are properties in Sherwood Forest that we've seen that have this peculiarity in which you have a tremendous amount of space in the front and less in the back. And I think that that's something that the applicant would have seen when purchasing the property and assessing whether or not this was a good fit. I do think that there is a way that you can get around this, this portion of the code, not necessarily get around, but comply with this portion of the code. And if it is just a stated desire to have more space, I wonder if that is persuasive enough for me to say that I would do something other than what is normally done. For me, that would be a no. And I would say that the solution to the problem as it relates to space and everything else that was stated, I don't want to state anything that was in your previous application, but I think the solution to your problem lies within conceding to follow the code and erecting that fence at the 25-foot or 26-foot mark. That is my opinion on it. I will give everyone else an opportunity to speak on it if there's anyone else on the committee who would like to say something. Given that, I'll ask the applicant if they have any comment on it before I open it up to comment from the public.
Yeah, two things. So first of all, the rationale that staff is giving for disapproval, it's just their opinion that 50 feet is enough space in the front yard. As I provided evidence here, the enclosed properties who have backyards on both sides of me have over 60 feet in the backyard. You know, if we can negotiate something that's equitable with the neighbors, that would be amazing. That's why we're here. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, another thing I want to address to the committee is we're planning to adopt kids, so that's why we want to close our front too. It's like a small core wall. It's nothing, you know, ugly to the village, to Sherwood Forest. You know already, we told that. So I want you guys to consider that too, because we don't have any space for nothing right now to enjoy. So.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Preliminarily, it's pretty exciting. I'm a big fan of kids. I have two of my own. But yes, back to the topic on this, I understand that there is a desire sometimes to look to others and see what does everyone else have and say, hey, I want to be, you know, I want my property to function like theirs, but I think in this situation, what we're looking to is not something that is even negotiated, but it is a document that prescribes certain hard truths. And in this one, it says 25 feet. And it gives us very clear parameters within which we deviate from that. And I think if we look to that document, the only solution that we can prescribe, well, I am comfortable prescribing, is saying, hey, you are lucky enough that you do have enough space to push that fence back if you would like to. And I think that that's a very reasonable solution when you look at the document. I'm just, not personal taste, but just looking at the document and the code, which we kind of have to follow because it governs the way in which we grow and in which we exist in the village.
I did bring math and percentages to this. This isn't, again, we're fighting for equity, to have equity with our lot. We already have one side that's in the letter of intent that is non-conforming to the setback, the right side, because our house is from 1936. So, there's that as well. Our property's already non-conforming. So we're just asking to be able to work with, in an equitable way, the property that we do have and that we pay taxes on.
Yeah. The way it works is that once you adopt a new set of codes, then from that point is when everything that exists before it is, it's called grandfathered in. And then you go based on your latest edition of the code to figure out how to prescribe behavior in the future. So I get what you're saying, and I don't discount it at all, but looking at the code as it is, that would be my thoughts. I think now would be a good time for us to open it to the audience to see if anyone has a comment on item F10. If so, please step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Eric, 311 Northeast 86th Street. I'm personal friends with the guys, so I happen to know a little bit. And we talked in technicality, and it's so hard to visualize. But what they actually want is like a not too tall 4-foot coral fence, let's put it this way. And they could have bought that house. It's a very old house. They found out structural problems, and they decided to maintain it and to preserve it. Ricardo, they are both vegans, and they are very concerned about nature and the environment and of El Portal. So I know that the guys plan on the future to, if they can, not right now, to build a swimming pool, which is why they're fighting for space. I don't know why they didn't say it right now, but they know that if they have less space, they wouldn't be able to have the enough coordinates to build a pool. And that's an open area. So in the front of their lot, they have like these two beautiful oak trees. And I think it would look really quaint and really beautiful to have the fence built right after it with lots of plants that are natural. And then they could have the space for building a family, for having this pool in case it works in the future. It's a big financial decision. And which is why I just wanted to come here and bring this perspective that isn't so based on technicalities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the comment. Are there any other comments on item F10? All right, going once. Oh, there is a comment. Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Jay Ribeiro, 225 Northeast 86th Street. I'm their east side neighbor. There's no negotiation here. And if they measure my lot for being 60 feet behind, so be it. You could measure everything, like you measure my lights, you measure everything else, even my plants. There's no negotiation here. There's no front fence, no front shrubs to be put in, hedges or whatever, okay? And just reading from their letter, first paragraph, they swore in that they have children. If they are planning to adopt, children are not there. However, they have filed complaints against Ms. Claudia's school for children being loud.
Okay, let's keep it to the merits of the item.
Subject.
Objection, not relevant.
In addition, are you a lawyer?
Let's
In
calm
addition,
it down. We can make this
with
happen.
the coral rock
Yes.
being up in the front, I believe I'm seeing verbiage here about the fence being extended out from the border of the property line, the border of my building, where my fence is at. If that wood fence is extended, they have not asked permission to move my planters or whatever
Everything
gonna
will be
happen.
on our property line.
One second, we're gonna take turns. We're gonna take turns, and we can do that. We're not in a court of law, but we are in a place of business, and we can take turns. We can just be cordial to each other. We're neighbors after all. So let him finish, and then after that, you're more than welcome to write down all of the items that you personally object to, and you can state them on the record. But I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay.
No
Thank you.
All I'm saying is no negotiation.
Thank
no
you.
front face.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now, as I promised, do you have anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, Thomas Pulliam, 205 Northeast 86th Street. Everything that was just mentioned by the previous person, we object to as non-relevant or material to the case that we're making regarding the peculiar nature of our lot and what
Okay.
we plan to do on our property.
Thank you so much. Do you have any additional comments on item F10? Step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi. Whoa, this is like Toastmasters.
Yeah.
This is very college class. Hi, Catherine Williams. Catherine Williams Livingstone. I live at 115 Northeast 90th Street.
You're doing great, Catherine.
Thank you. Quite nervous. I had some. I'm not fully prepared to direct.
The
all of-
great news is you don't have to be fully prepared. Just give us what you got.
Okay, thank you. I did have something that I wanted to bring up regarding the noise ordinance, and actually, the noise ordinance problem that we have been having, the guy turned out to be here. It was the shrub guy. So I wrote that down. I had no idea it was going to be him. A man mentioned construction in September or something, and I concur, but I don't think that's like 9 a.m. is what happened.
So I will say this. I think you are so prepared that you're a little early. You can give us this in good and welfare, which will happen in maybe 5 minutes. Do you have any comments that's specific to this application for F10?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please. And then you can come back to us with the remainder.
Okay, well, I just have one more thing. Great job about that McMansion. Okay, thank. And then
I like
I was
accolades.
actually looking at where's the map? This map, and I have never been to Mr. Lima's home. I've never seen it, but I'm failing to understand why he can't have a fence. I'm just not understanding that. So I don't know him. I've never met him, but I did write that down because I'm just not understanding why, if he has this unique situation, because my home, 115 Northeast 90th Street, we've got people coming for miles. They're like, oh, you're that floaty home, because we have cathedral ceilings and it's a unique home. So I'm failing to understand why he can't have something where he pays a lot of money to live. That would be like saying, hey, Catherine, you can't have this. I'm just failing to understand that, so.
No, I definitely get it, and I love your comments, and thank you for coming up and giving us a said comment. We appreciate that. I don't know if anyone wants to tackle the question of why. I do think we've said it before, but I will say it again. I think generally the consensus has been on this body to have El Portal be a community that is more open than it is closed. So historically, through this Planning and Zoning Committee, we have denied applications that sought to close off the front of the property for reasons for mobility. A lot of our streets do not have sidewalks. We have residents who are disabled, who are in wheelchairs. We don't have the code enforcement staff to maintain that shrubbery, the hedges that may be overgrown, and it creates a hazard. It creates the perception of not being safe. These are things that we have kind of chimed on about for a while, and in an effort to be consistent, we really vet these applications for variances. and really take a look at what is the uniqueness and what is the peculiarity. And I will say this for this body, I don't think that the decisions that we've made have been arbitrary or capricious in any way. I think we have had a set of rules that we follow, and I think that we followed them precisely and fairly, and most importantly, consistently. I do think you know what to expect with this body. And in that vein, I'll just enumerate myself. I do think that you can always look to me to say, hey, if it's in the code, we should follow the rules that are in the code, because these rules were not put together haphazardly. These are things that predate us and have been done for a reason, and also have brought us to where we are now, which is, I think, a pretty amazing and beautiful village. So I do stick pretty closely to the code. I do think that if there is an issue with the code, that is the first place to start, is these comprehensive meetings about, well, do we want to change this hedge prohibition, all of these things. These are conversations that we can engage in, but I don't think something that we can administer one by one. Otherwise, then that becomes arbitrary and capricious. So I think that is my reasoning behind why generally we stand behind making sure that those areas are open. And I do think Councilman Erbaum has a...
Yeah, so earlier in the meeting, we talked about parts of the code that are outdated and even irrelevant, right? Well, fencing is one that we actually, we've settled fencing. You know, town halls, et cetera, data collection, scientific understanding of why we don't want to enclose the village, right? So the issue is actually not with the fence. It seems like it would be a very nice fence. The issue is not even with the height at 4 feet. You know, one of the concerns is with you know, putting a 6-foot fence in front of a property. Now there's less eyeballs on the street, for example. So that's one of the so it seems safer for the people living in there, but everyone becomes very isolated, and you don't have people kind of keeping an eye out, you know, looking out for each other anymore. It's one-off to who can keep their property secure when you enclose the front of a property with 6-foot fences, right? So that was what the data told us, and then the residents through 2 or even 3 town halls gave their input. So our fence ordinance is actually the one that has been fully updated and modernized. So I will say that, you know, in light of the reality that some of our other ordinances, noise specifically, right, are lacking. This is a totally different story. This is a recently settled history in terms of the fencing ordinances in El Portal. So I just want to put that out there. So.
Thank you for that additional color. So Councilman Erbaum predates me on the council and has a lot of amazing historical knowledge as to the processes that we've already gone through that support some of the decisions that we currently find ourselves making. So with that being said, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am, you did. And
Okay.
unfortunately, I am not the only person. I have 4 other people in my neighborhood that have been having difficulty with our new neighbor, and we've contacted code enforcement.
Okay.
And
you're talking about 9001 Northeast First Ave?
yes,
Yes.
not here.
I
Okay,
know
good.
who you're referring to.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So if he can have like this not very nice looking fence, you know, if he can put that red thing, why
I think that was grandfathered in,
Well,
right?
no, not entirely. So that is, again, so when we're talking about variances, kind of the first requirement that you should be considering with your property to say, well, should I even bring this to the council, right? Now, I will say in this situation, we do have a property that kind of fits the idea of, okay, well, maybe there's a variance needed because it is a unique property. So what we learned essentially specifically from fences and all that data that I referenced earlier was that corner lots represent their own category of uniqueness. And it's not even, it's almost like, you know, no 2 corners are alike even. So tonight we've had 2 variances discussing, you know, a front barrier, hedges in both of the circumstances, pared down from a fence originally petitioned for, specifically because of a unique circumstance to a corner, right? Now, this is a little bit different unique circumstance. It's not a corner. However, there is clearly a uniqueness to the property. The house is not located where the property typically would be located on the lot. And so it does seem that kind of the front and backyards have kind of been juxtaposed, and so therein lies the issue. So again, there's already a prescription for that in the code, more or less, to say variance allowable to 25 feet within the property line, right? And here we're discussing tonight a request for an additional 20 feet closer to the property line.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for your time. I just had these notes that I just wanted to
Thank
bring
you
up, and
so-
I will be here, back again, excuse me,
Awesome.
obviously better prepared and.
No, you were awesome.
Yeah.
You were awesome.
Okay, thank you
don't
for
give
your
yourself
time.
enough credit.
Thank you.
All right. I think we have one additional comment. Am I correct? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Noel Pace, 206 Northwest 91st Street. I think my main concern with this request is not necessarily the aesthetics, even though Councilperson Urban mentioned that he's very concerned about having sort of that block look to the frontage of the street, which is exactly what a coral wall, not a fence, but a wall would do 5 feet from the roadway. And I have the same concern. I did participate in those different workshops over the 10, 15 years that we've been here now. I did participate in the charrette process. I am very concerned about the respect of the rule of law here. And that is the reason why we do have a code, is to establish the standards. I'll have to tell you, I was really heartened by that great presentation Placerbia did about the 100-year. My house will be 100 next year in
Congrats.
2025. So thanks for that recognition and for all that. But in the end, like we heard, what a great thing that El Portal is in terms of its standards of maintaining sort of our historical perspective and how we look. And I mean, I understand that the applicant here, is said that he's going to have kids, or he's going to have a pool, or he's got nuisance at the front yard. But in the end, the code already has basically, has accounted for all that in terms of what is available. And to me, I think that's sort of really important, is for us to sort of stick with, what you guys sort of labor with all the time here in all these different outfits. And I mean, I can tell you, in reviewing Mr. Pulliam's website, I mean, he talks about how he's going to change, and he invents or reinvents policy. He has people, he feels that he's some sort of influencer here.
Objection not relevant.
And any
One
states.
second, Mr. Pulliam.
And
I'll have you
any
respond.
state said, hey, he's negotiating here. I don't think this is a negotiation. I think it's a request for a variance, and I hope that it's denied. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Mr. Pulliam, I said that I would let you respond, and I do want you to feel fully heard.
Yeah, thank you. So a few things that I object to that are irrelevant. First of all, the proposed coral wall would be 30 feet from the street as illustrated in the map. So we are already, our property line doesn't start till after 25 feet from the road to begin with. So this coral wall would be 30 feet from the street to begin with. Already 5 feet closer to my property away from the public right-of-way, and then there's the 25 feet uninfringed public right-of-way.
That's what, I'm sorry if I might, that's what wasn't clear at the beginning. So he's, instead of giving, so you actually getting, giving away 5 feet from your property
Yes,
to.
it's illustrated right here. Is that
Exactly.
gonna-
Now, is that, just to have it in perspective, the 2 trees that you have over there, will the
Yes.
fence be
Uh-huh.
behind the trees or in?
They will, and even if it was at the property line, it would still be behind the trees, because
Behind
the
the
trees are just right in front of the property line.
That'll
But
be-
this will be now 5 feet behind
those trees.
Behind,
Yes. The other thing I object to, yes, we have a right to put our swimming pool within the setbacks within our specific location in our property already. We're not gonna need a variance for that. We want this variance, so again, we have more usable yard space, so we can enjoy that pool in privacy, because we don't have equitable enclosed area like our neighbors' backyards. So we are specifically arguing for the peculiarity of our property, not any safety problems that we're encountering, or other requests like that. Also, as approved tonight, y'all approved 3 feet hedges at the property line of a house that has a huge fenced-in backyard already. And also, I did a public records request on the town halls and workshops that were before our time regarding the enclosed properties or whatnot. It was not a scientific approach. I am a paid consultant for research and insights in the corporate world. and the survey methodology was flawed. I'm not sure if you received my email, but I pointed out the discrepancies I saw in that. The only question that was asked in terms of enclosing a front property or not was 2 images, one of like a house in New England with a 6-foot front gate, and another one of a El Portal property with an open front, and it was an either-or question: which neighborhood feels more safe? There was no other evidence or scientific rationale provided in terms of, not wanting to enclose the front yard. And again, that's not the issue because there's no ordinance against that. Per our plan, we have the right to put it at the primary front setback, which, after 25 feet. But we're saying because of the uniqueness of our lot, and to have equity with our neighbors who have large enclosed areas, we're asking for the setback change and adjustment to that, much like the property you just approved with the setback for the pool.
Thank you so much. Do we have any additional comments from our guests? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close it to the public, bring it back to the council. I think Councilman Perrella
Yes.
has a comment. Everyone has
Thank
a
you.
comment.
Yeah.
Buckle up, guys. Councilman Perrella.
Now, since the applicant mentioned a pool, is that true where they can build a pool without a variance or without anything in front of the yard, and would a 4-foot fence will be enough barrier or, enclosement for the pool?
From what I was told, the code currently does not speak to accessory uses in the front yard. So that would have to be a question that you bring forward to legal at a future date.
Then we
regarding
will
the
have to,
swimming
I'm
pool.
sorry to interrupt, then typically go with the county's code, which is
If we fall
75,
back
a
on
pool
the-
should be 75 feet off the front road.
Yes, most
There you go.
municipalities do not permit accessory
Right.
structures in the front yard.
Okay.
Just one point on that. So we already submitted that proposal and diagram to Placerbia when they were running the show before, and they approved that January 2023. So the location of the pool would be 5 feet from the front of where the garage used to be. That's been enclosed and now is the kitchen. And much like the modern house, which is wants to build, we want more of an indoor-outdoor living area. We can't have that with a 13-foot backyard, but we can have that with
Mr.
a
Pullian,
75-foot.
I understand your
Yeah.
situation, and it's only fair for you to be asking us for the reason. But like Councilwoman Martin has said it before, we go by what the code is allowed. We can, go back and forth and how many, other properties has been approved or not approved, or variances. You can go back to 20 years. I don't know. I've been here for 4 years, and I've never seen, or I've never had approved anything, or I had voted in favor of any of, fences or entirely closing the front yard. Now, by code, yes, a coral wall is allowed, which is what you're intending to do. I'm not in favor of, it would not be a yes for me to enclose, to follow the side fence 6 feet from the two neighbors, going all the way to the
It's
to
not
the
6,
coral wall.
it's 4 feet, and both of those property
4 feet.
lines already have plants and hedges
Plants and
planted
hedges.
on them.
Yeah, if you plant hedges, it's the same thing as pretty much having a fence, yes.
So it's already
Right.
blocked.
Right.
And it's already not visible
Okay,
because
so
of
it will
the
not be
adjacent
a 6
properties.
feet.
Correct.
Okay, going in any way, going, in any case, going to the front of the front fence, if anything. The
Can you
side,
restate
the side fences
Mhm.
to tie in with the front yard, with the front fence.
Yeah.
Would not be at 6 feet tall.
No, it'd be at 4 feet,
At
the
4
same
feet,
as
the
the
same
coral
as
height.
the
Yeah.
coral well. Okay.
However, if we don't get a variance, we will, within our right, put the 6-foot wall at the 25 setback. And we do have, on the east side neighbor, the man who spoke earlier today, we do have a right to enclose that an additional 6 feet beyond where it already is, meeting the 25-foot setback.
We don't want to do that.
But we don't want to lose the space, right? Because we have a small property, and we have the right to put the pool there, so we want to maximize how much space we can have, and we want to have at least the same amount of space that our neighbors next to us have enclosed in their backyards.
Thank you so much. Councilman Erbaum, I think you're going to close this out.
Well, just a quick point.
Okay.
Just a quick point of clarification.
No, take your time.
Okay, so all right, we're using two different just reference points here. One is the property line and one is the street. So I just want to clarify that when we're saying street, we're talking from the center of the street. So when we say the proposal, so right now, the request is to have the wall essentially, well, it's a little bit on 25 feet from, 30 feet from the center of the street. 30 feet from the center of the street is the present request. And what we're talking about is why not, or how not, or should it be back an additional 25 feet?
An additional 20 feet.
To the additional 20 feet
Yeah.
to the primary.
Yeah,
setback
which
line.
is where we have by right.
Which would then be,
To have it
which would
already.
then be 50 feet from the center of the street. And so what
Correct.
you're saying is, for the pool, they would still be needing another 25 feet beyond that primary line to where,
By Miami
to where
code,
the
yes.
pool would start. Okay.
We can put a 24-foot pool 5 feet from the front of our property, and then 24 feet extending, which is in compliance with our lot. So, and we did consider all that before we purchased the property as well, and we're familiar with the codes and familiar with the variance process. We believe the variance process exists because there are unique peculiarities with properties, and waiting for something for entire code review, which was already postponed to possibly next year because of no budget, doesn't give us any confidence of being able to resolve this in a timely manner.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Lightfoot Ward, maybe you'll close this out.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. You don't have a backyard, so you can't do anything in your backyard, but you want a pool. You want a variance that allows you to have exactly what I might have if I do my house. You live in El Portal, you want to have the same thing. This is a unique piece of property. So why are we looking at it like it's standard? It is not standard. It is a front yard property that doesn't have a backyard. You want a pool. You want something that can give you privacy. Madam Chair, I'm going to ask this. If it were you and you're coming here to make sure you have the recreational features in your front yard that everybody has in their back or side yard, would you not come to the council and ask for a variance? The answer is yes, you would. I do understand your point of view, but this is not the same property. The property is only livable recreationally in the front yard because there is no backyard. The fact that you bought it like that may not have been your intent from the beginning, but now that you see how we run, how we are here in the village, I even want a pool. But you know why I can't get a pool? My septic tank is so big, and I like it, y'all. My septic tank is so big, I can't have a pool in my backyard. But I got a huge side yard, do I not? She lives in the same area. I got a huge side yard, but I'm not gonna ask for a pool in my side yard, okay? But I feel you, I hear you. The code does not address if you don't have a backyard. That's why we're here. Shall we or shall we not? Let this person, this property owner, have a thing of recreational interest without being naked in front of the public while they're in the pool or trying to get in the pool. We gotta think outside this block, you all. They did come here with the right information, with the right idea, with the acceptance of, please say yes, I don't have a way to do this anyway else. So the exception to me is quite clear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, do we have any other comments from the council? Mr. Mayor, I know you want to say something. I know that lean back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been working together long enough. You know me already. So I want to say one thing for us to just kind of keep in mind for the future, and that is for our planning and zoning consultants, right? for something to be approved, but then to be not approved is something that we just have to make sure that they're on point with in the future. So that, because I think the rationale, correct me if I'm wrong, was something about, I guess when it was approved the first time, all the details or particulars weren't looked at.
According to Ms. Hammonds.
According
yes,
to Ms. Hammonds?
The previous submittal didn't have certain information for her to make a correct.
And the information, but the information was already there. It just was kind of, it
I'm
wasn't
not
seen.
certain as to when
Yeah.
it was submitted or.
So that's
the
something that we
revisions were
probably want to
submitted.
keep an eye on for our consultants, just to make sure that they're consistent throughout, you know, whenever they look at a property, because that's just something that I don't want to come back and bite us in the future. The only other thing that I would ask is now I understand with the setback and the placement of where they want to put the wall, is it wouldn't matter if it's and I guess I'm asking the committee this, Madam Chair, if it wasn't a wall, would that make a difference, right? Because so for example, when you walk through Sherwood Forest, you see a lot of properties that you can't even see the house from the street, especially the east side of Sherwood Forest. When you get by the Indian Mound, it's all trees and bushes and everything right up to the property line, right up to the street. It's trees and bushes and everything, and then the house is set so far back, and it's like a long, winding road down to the house. And I think that's beautiful the way it looks. I think it's amazing the way it looks. I think those properties are some of the properties that give El Portal the uniqueness that it has, where like you feel like you're in like a jungle somewhere. My house that I used to have on 87th was like that, 252 87th. It's like you can't see the house from the street. So is it that it's the wall? So imagine if they came to us and they said, we're going to put a bunch of trees and bushes and stuff to block ourselves from, and insulate ourselves to where people can't see us in our bathing suits running around in broad daylight. If it's not a wall, if it's trees and bushes and making it look like the other properties in Sherwood Forest that are more on the east side, would that be okay? Or is it the placement, regardless of what it is that's going there? That's my only other question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Does anyone want to take Mr. Mayor's question? I think, was that rhetorical or did you want an actual? Oh, you wanted it, okay.
Well, his yeah, that was a question. Now
Councilman
he wants
Pereira.
answers.
Vice
No question.
Mayor Pereira.
Mayor, you said something very interesting. Are you gonna make a motion on that one? You said something very interesting that might be the center of yes and no.
Maybe, Madam Chair, the first thing, maybe the applicants, are you guys set on the wall, or is it just that you want the buffer? So if you guys were able to have a buffer, even though I understand, let me just put it, I understand that trees and bushes can get a lot more expensive than just a wall. Is it that you guys just want the buffer? So if you guys were able to do what these properties over here in Sherwood Forest are able to do, which is buffer, at the point where you guys want the buffer, but it's like tropical and trees and bushes and things that block you, that insulate you and to where people can't see into your property, is that something that's feasible, or do you guys want the wall? Maybe I'll
Well,
start with-
actually, the coral wall is more expensive than the shrubs and the trees.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and I guess they're going by code. They said they're allowed
Yes.
coral walls.
Coral.
Yes,
right?
uh-huh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, again, we're trying to follow the intent of the code and all the precedent that's come before, and again, follow the variance process for the peculiarity of our lot to achieve equity with neighboring properties.
Well, that's why, I guess, going back to the committee, that's why my question was for the committee. Is it the placement? Is the setback that's kind of like the problem that anybody up here who would be voting no, is the setback location that's the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the
Setback.
problem.
For me, it's the fact that the code says a particular thing, and I would like the code to be followed. And if there is some sort of concerted desire for that code to change, that there's a way for us to do that, which is to amend the code and then follow those rules. I think that continuity and consistency in following the code is very important. I do think that there is a variance process that governs unique properties. I think we all have to think to ourselves whether or not this property is unique, or is this just the desire of the property. I want a house that has like 3 pools in the back and like 2 in the front. I would love it. But my property doesn't allow for that. My budget doesn't allow for that. And those are things that I kind of have to, kind of deal with. So for me, it is just the desire to follow the code, but that is just the rules that I'm using. But I do think that there's a surefire way that you can gauge the committee to see whether or not the hedge question might be dispositive of the issue. Yeah. Does someone want to make a motion on this item?
I will, because I'm thinking like
So
this, guys.
an easy way is to either, I think it's either accept or deny staff's recommendation. Staff is recommending that we deny. And I also would like to say this for staff. I think that what Charlotte was, and I hate to speak for Charlotte, so I'm not even gonna say that.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that, hey, a reasonable possibility as far as what I was thinking was that when we did this the last time, the general body stated that it was our desire not to enclose the front of the properties. And Charlotte expressed that this was something novel to her, which I think could be reasonable because she has not been the provider. Prior to that, we had Placerbia. So I think it's with that additional knowledge within which she has analyzed the updated request by the applicant.
And I also just want to clarify something. It's not that they cannot have the fence. It's that they're putting it within the 25-foot
Yes,
setback.
they can't have the fence where they want
It's
it.
technically measured from the property line, not from the center line of the road.
That would make a difference in terms of how we vote? Because if they're doing it the way that the proper way to be done, and it comes out that it still gets what they want, then we can look at this differently if that is what is needed. Is that what you're saying?
I think the issue is that they don't want to set back the fence 25 feet from the property line.
And I think what you're saying, Councilwoman Lightfoot Ward, if we did accept staff's recommendation of denial, they could still have what they want. It just wouldn't be where they want it.
And would they have to come back?
No, right? No.
They could have what they want, the pool in the front. They can have what they want.
I'm just
I'm
talking
not
about the
discussing the
fence.
pool.
Yeah, I have no idea about the pool. And the pool
Okay.
isn't in front of us. It's just that my comment is localized to the fence.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
All I'm thinking, it is not fair. The people bought the property. They have a huge front yard. They have no backyard. It is not fair. We should have a way. If I can get a pool, you can get a pool, she can get a pool, because they got large backyards. What is wrong with the shadow closing with trees and shrubbery that these gentlemen cannot have a pool too? They don't have a backyard.
Well,
Who are we in America?
my fear is that if you extrapolate that out to other things, my fear is extrapolating that concept out to other things, that you just get what you want because you desire it and someone else has it, and there's no regard to what is actually allowed based on the governing documents for a municipality. That is scary for me. So that's a point that I pause. But I do think that anyone can make a motion on this item, I think except for me. Is that correct? Yeah, I can't make the motion.
You can't.
No, I can't because I chair the meeting. But anyone else can make a motion and kind of gauge, I see you, kind of gauge the temperature of the room, of the body.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Councilman
And just for staff, so the illustration that we have here, the survey, where it has the two red lines, it said 5 feet front setback and then 25 feet setback. What is that?
Let me pass it down.
So
Sure.
what are those two red? No, I have it here. Oh.
Those are from the property line.
So that's 5 feet from the property line and 25 feet from the property line is the second.
Correct.
And if they build at 25 feet, is that
Permitted.
permitted?
Correct.
But they want to put it at 5 feet right here off the
Correct.
property line, not off the street like you clarified.
Correct.
There you go. Okay.
And I do think that the applicant has a comment, and I do want to make sure you feel completely heard.
Yeah, thank you. You want to go ahead?
Mr. Lima?
I just want to take, this is not a prejudice against us because we're a gay couple. Just don't feel welcome in this community right now. Since the beginning, we are always asking for something and you guys approve for other people. And I think it's not fair for us since we want to adopt a kid too. And I think Village of El Portal should know we are, a young gay couple here. We want to adopt a kid. We want to build a family here. And all you guys have kids, basically, so I think you
I don't.
appreciate it.
I have
So-
5 nephews in my house right now from all
So,
over the
yeah,
state, but.
So you got kids.
I just don't want to take like that, so I appreciate it.
First of all, just on a personal level, I want you to know that is the furthest thing from the truth, and I would not want anyone to feel like that, and especially as a black woman with black children and black family, I do know the importance of feeling welcomed, and I do want you to know that when I approach everything, I approach it with a sense of responsibility and lack of bias.
Yes, a little
and
bit
I
of
think
an
I'm
insult
very
to even say that.
yeah, and I
To
think,
me, I'll take it
and
as an
but I
insult.
also, I feel it in my heart that if you feel like that, I want to allay those fears because you and your family is as beautiful as me and my family, as a family with other characteristics, and we all belong here. I hope that you know that this is a conversation about just fences. When I see you, I just see a family, and when I think about you adopting a child, I would be more than willing not to babysit, but to give you any sort of tips and pointers that I've acquired. I felt really welcomed here, and I hope you guys feel that as well. I think that there may be complicating factors, and I sincerely hope that none of those factors have to do with what you just stated. But I do want Councilman Erbaum to respond as well.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'm from Kansas, so I grew up around some guys who would give some Florida rednecks a run for their money. My little brother came out over 20 years ago. My dad's little brother was diagnosed with HIV before they knew what it was. He went full-blown AIDS in '96. He's still alive. So in my family, we've had conversations about these issues specifically from some of my earliest memories going back to 4 or 5 years old. And credit to my parents who actually ended up becoming evangelicals. It was all, it's family, right? So that's the whole issue of everything is, at this point in time, anyone who pretends they don't have somebody in their family who, is in the LGBT community is not paying attention and doesn't know what time of day it is. So I would just echo Councilperson Martin's words that that does not enter the calculus here, and I understand the concern, and I won't. I wouldn't tell you that, I'm not going to tell you not to have that concern. I'm just going to. All I can do is attempt to reassure you that, from our perspective, that's not part of the calculus at all.
Thank you. I had a comment too. So it's really disheartening to hear that some of the council people believe the standard code should just be applied across the board, totally ignoring the variance process and the peculiarity, which is specifically written into the code to have this forum in order to look at the credentials of the peculiarity of every lot and determine if it's equitable with neighbors or not. We have proven that tonight with our property lot and our 2 adjacent properties, showing that having to comply with the 25-foot setback would put us at a 500-foot disadvantage, square foot, in terms of private usable area that we have relative to both neighbors. So again, that is the reason why the variance process exists and why our house should not be considered standard like any other property in Sherwood Forest or El Portal. Further, other evidence we submitted, our particular street is a double street, 85th and 86th Street. So we're getting double the traffic, which is also doubling the risk for, any type of potential issue. So that's another reason why we're seeking to be able to prefer, closing it in with a fence. And that's why we've spent months and months and months and $900 and all these people's time to make that argument per the code and what's allowed. Because otherwise we would have skipped this and just built the 6-foot fence at the 25-foot setback, which is allowed. But we demonstrated the peculiarity tonight. We also had 2 eyewitnesses that confirmed the peculiarity of our lot, who came and spoke on our behalf. And again, have printouts with the math there available, submitted to the public record. In addition, I think a lot of the sentiment around being denied and rejected for different things also has to do with how staff is preparing or mispreparing reports. In today's report, on one page, it says the use of our fence does comply harmoniously, and then in the staff recommendation, the last page, it says it does not.
Thank you so much for illuminating that. And I also, I just want to clarify. I don't think that the variance process should not be used. I'm not saying that there isn't a variance process, and my question is to whether or not your property is unique. And I think that that's an analysis that we have to engage in on an individual basis. So the variance process is there and definitely valid and available. It's just the process within which you analyze the uniqueness varies. But any of the council members can go ahead and make a motion on this item, and we can, just get some finality if someone is so desiring. Yes, Councilman Urban.
I am.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am desiring. Given the peculiarity of the property, I move approval for this variance.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Roll call, Member Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Member Urban.
No.
Member Nickerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella.
No.
Chair Martin.
No.
Motion fails 3-2.
Thank you so much.
Now, we make a motion for a sec? Oh, you go ahead.
I would, before someone else makes a motion, I do want just a point of clarification. Perhaps you can help out. The concern about the recommendation being approved initially and then being denied secondarily. My understanding is that the approval and the word harmony, right? The discussion about whether it was in harmony. So I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the use of the word harmony in the first approval recommended was because the materials of the fence and the design of the fence were in harmony. But I believe that the out of harmony comment in this denial recommendation comes from the placement of the structure. Am I correct in thinking that's the discrepancy?
From what was described to me, yes.
I have a point of clarification because I submitted it in the paperwork today. In the literal report that they submitted, it's contradictory. On one page, it says it is not harmonious, or it says it is harmonious on this application, and the last page, it says it is not.
Where is that? Because I was just looking for it and I did not find that.
May I see your paper?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't prepare the report, so I need to know where it's located.
That's been another challenge.
It could be a Scrivener's error.
I mean, to me, it's irrelevant
Yeah, it could
because,
be a Scrivener's error. It does
last
not have to be
planning and
harmonious.
zoning, we did have, last planning and zoning, we did have an after-the-fact fence, and a staff report was recommendation, and it went with, it was harmonious with the environment and whatever, and we still denied it. It was, 5 to none.
I think
So
we've already
it's-
decided. Thank you so much. I will let Councilman Erbaum go ahead and get that. Huh? Yes, so with that being said, we're gonna move on to subsection G, good and welfare. Councilman Erbaum, could you guys step to the back? Thank you so much. Yes, so we're gonna move on to subsection G, which is good and welfare. At this point, anyone, one second, Mr. Pulliam, what question do you have?
So is it possible we can have it at 10 feet? Like, is there some equitable negotiation here with the variance process? Again, we spent months and months and months demonstrated our lot size, the peculiarity.
I don't think
and
we
we're
can do it
requesting-
ad hoc like that. I think you would have to go get with the Cordino Group, and this would be a new application, would it be? This would be a brand-new thing?
Unless somebody brings
Let
forward
me
a
say
motion.
again,
Yeah, we can make a
if it
motion.
is the identical application, it can only be considered if there is a motion for reconsideration. However, a new application requesting something different, we don't have something that says you can't come back and ask for something different. Some cities do, this city does not. So a new application that asks for different relief may always be considered in this village.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman
I'm
Erbaum.
Just,
And then I'm gonna go right to you after Councilman Erbaum.
so I just want to speak to what Chair Martin was saying earlier in terms of, and so the 25-foot setback, what we're talking about, is the prescription from the code to account for this unique property. So by allowing the barrier at the 25-foot mark as opposed to the 5-foot mark, is in and of itself the code drawing outside its own lines. Is that my understanding?
I think we've already voted.
Right. So I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that though. that we're-
Councilman, the answer to your question is
Yeah.
that's what variances do, and variances are not necessarily black and white. And typically, when people try to negotiate something, normally that might happen in advance. So if.
Which we did try.
If a
just
zero setback failed, and tonight a 5-foot setback failed, and the code demands 25 feet, then possibly the council sticks with 25 feet, but possibly the council decides that a 20-foot or a 15-foot setback is appropriate, but 5 was not enough.
And can I get some clarification from you? What is the procedure for seeing whether or not another number might be amenable to the council? Would that be a new application from the
It
applicant?
is a new application, but to my understanding, and the clerk may correct me, but I don't believe that somebody in this circumstance, an owner trying to secure their own variance, I don't think that requires them to lobby, to register as a lobbyist, and they're permitted individually to, council members are not required to have conversations with anybody, but you can certainly receive emails, you can certainly, receive texts. They're allowed to inquire of you, and if they can informally find some consensus that leaves the members of the council feeling that the purposes of the setback are being served, but that some greater setback than what they've sought from the street is appropriate, maybe you hold to 25. I'm not telling you that you can't. You certainly can.
Yes.
That's what your code says. But if there is some consensus that can be developed informally, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 15. That's certainly not for me to say. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that you're obligated to do that. You have a code, and you apply any variance to it based on a whole bunch of factors that staff has put forward and your own good judgment and common sense. But there's certainly nothing that stops you from saying, I'm not gonna have it be right up front, I'm not gonna have it 5 feet back, but I can live with 20 instead of 25, or 18.9, or anything else.
But so my point is that would be something that would be done outside of
Yes,
right now
ma'am.
at this podium.
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
You don't come up and typically, at least, not saying you are, it's illegal, but typically people who are trying to negotiate something don't come to the dais, come to the podium, and then do it on the fly. The idea is that's why you spend an hour discussing it. Instead, you approach informally and try to see, there may not be a consensus. They still have the right to apply, and obviously, the less you ask, the more likely you are to get. The more you ask, the less likely you are to get. That's simple common sense and interpersonal dynamics. It may be that this council does not want that variance in a front yard. But it may be, where there's a close vote, there may be a sweet spot that can be informally dealt with and some consensus perhaps arrived at. It's not lost on me that, a deciding vote was not so quick to vote. So possibly, not definitely, not as a matter of right, but possibly there is a sweet spot where people
Point
feel
taken.
comfortable.
Point
And
completely
it can be
taken.
done informally, and it's not typically done from the podium.
Point taken. And also, for the applicant, I think all of that is very sage advice. And we have ruled on the item, and we are going to move forward to subsection G, but we all remain available.
I have a request. Would you entertain a motion from a council person if they want to offer something else? There has been many times, been in many of these planning and zoning meetings.
It would have to
and
be
that
a-
happens on the fly consistently.
I think from
We've
what
witnessed
the
that.
attorney is telling us, it would have to be a motion for reconsideration from the prevailing party on the same issue, right?
If it was, okay,
How's it different
There
than the
there are two
protocarpus?
different things here. And let's be clear about the two different things. A motion to have another vote on what was just voted down cannot happen absent a motion for reconsideration. That's correct. However, if somebody right this minute was prepared to just know where the council would be, you can, when 4 feet failed on a hedge, somebody said, how about 3?
Yeah.
You could do that, but, after an hour of debate with a lot of raw emotion, your better course could be to have some mature reflection and conversation, but
For
it is
sure.
not improper to have a vote to do something
And I
different.
thank you for your sage advice, and in an effort to make sure that we are all supremely comfortable. I do want to know, similar to what Attorney Geller just stated, is there someone on the council that wants to proffer a new motion with a new set of terms for us to consider? I think I hear none. Yes,
You're kind, you really are.
yes,
We've said too much tonight.
yes, we have.
But I think where you're going is, we can do this again. But we gotta think about this now.
Yeah,
We
I
have,
think
we
that's-
finished it
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
night. We
I
gotta
think that is,
Yes, ma'am.
I think that is very, very sage.
Taking
Um,
into consideration what the lawyer had
Yes,
advised,
yes,
so
yes.
I'd
This
rather
is
not
just
to.
so everyone
Yeah.
feels comfortable, especially in light of, everything that's been said tonight. I do want to make sure that you guys feel supremely heard. And I also want you guys to really note the fact that very rarely do we make the decision and then let the applicant propose different terms and all of these things. We've tried to be very accommodating,
Happens
and I
a lot.
hope you feel that.
No, we don't.
But usually if you.
Absolutely not, because you're not willing to negotiate nothing.
Okay.
And we've reached out to you after hours, and you're never available. Same with Anders Urban. The only person on the council available is the mayor to speak to. This has
Yeah.
been a 7-month process.
I will say this.
I
will
have,
say
and there's
this.
no response, unfortunately.
But I will say this, and maybe you don't know. Sometimes when you email me and I respond to you, you email back and copy the entire council, which is a sunshine violation. Essentially, like everything that I'm saying about a decision that I might make in the future is contained in that email. And I think I've sent you an email saying, hey, I've removed the other members of the council because this is, improper. And then you did that again. And I guess maybe tonight is a good time to say, I would prefer to be emailed singularly. So just email just me, and if you do email just me, I will make sure I try to respond to you.
We have gotten responses, but last response was, the rationale was everything said in the last meeting. There was no actual
Yeah.
rationale, and that's why we're trying to tease out, is there a middle ground? Is
Sim-
there a 10-foot variance?
Similar to
Is there something where
tonight.
we can have it equitable with our adjacent neighbors?
And I'm gonna tell you, similar to tonight, what you asked me was for me to defend a statement that I had already made and felt like I had defended already, and I felt like I had stated everything. As far as future conversations, when you're talking about other things that I might be open to, I think that's a different conversation.
Okay, so
and
the
I hope you
peculiarity
email me.
of the law, when might we be able to address this though? Because again, this has been a 7th-month thing. Development is so slow here in the village.
You should
And
email
it's gonna
us.
go into recess next month.
You should email us. You should email us and gauge the temperature then, and I'm sure everyone up here is aware of the fact that we'll get that email, and we're ready to respond. So email us, and we'll see. But thank you so much. We're gonna move forward to subsection G, good and welfare. and
Sorry,
we're
so
gonna-
is there a motion to reconsider or not? So
No,
it's just-
there was no motion. There was no motion to reconsider.
So it's dead?
Yes, it has been denied.
Okay. Okay.
You're welcome
right.
to reapply for something, as long as it's not identical, you're welcome to reapply.
Okay, we also, again, had the issue of the botched application. The, Cordino Group
Sir, at
has
this
errors
point,
within
you're out
it.
of order. The chair has indicated she's moving on.
Okay,
You do
I'll
not
sit
still
down.
have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much. Let's move forward to subsection G, good and welfare. Is there anyone, Mr. Mayor, good and welfare?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just wanted a quick clarification. Vice Mayor Perella brought up when we were doing the codes. So in April, we passed a first reading of an ordinance, form-based code lot coverage. What we had in consent agenda for the going through the codes, I pulled it. So it didn't go through. So we haven't addressed it yet. Yeah, but you took, for the code, to go through the code and stuff like that. I pulled it because I'm chair of A&F, and so actually myself, manager Lou, and CFO Taubenfeld, we have a meeting on Friday and Tuesday about the budget and what line items can we inject in there. You know what I mean? And so we're looking at that. We're going to look at all of that, including your historic, with the booklet and all that. That's like 20,000. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So we're going to be looking at all that or whatever. So just wanted to clarify that it wasn't consent agenda, but I pulled it from consent agenda in April, the April meeting. We did pass an ordinance first reading. We haven't passed a second reading yet for form-based code lot coverage. So.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you so much. Any other comments from the audience? Mr. Pulliam, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. 205 Northeast 86th Street, Thomas Pulliam. One thing, I really wish there was better decorum and professionalism in these meetings. On one hand, I'm told to advocate the floor, and then the attorney immediately wants me to come over and speak with him, interrupting the proceedings of this meeting, which, as a resident, I'm here to observe and engage civically. So I do not appreciate that at all. My second point is I do just want to reiterate and point out that tonight there was 3 setback variances granted, one in the front setback for protocarpus, one in the back setback for a swimming pool, and one on the secondary side setback for hedges. The applicants tonight, being the only gay couple of a certain age here, were denied with no negotiation of what would be allowed or not, nor any rationale from council people in terms of what the hard stops are in terms of distance from setbacks, plants versus walls, etc. So that has only been a conversation with the gay couple here within the village, not with other people who were here tonight who they all were approved for their setback variances. So I just want to reiterate that for the record. Thank you.
For the record, though I normally don't respond, I just want to place on the record that I apologize for my attempt to offer some advice and assistance to Mr. Pulliam. It was intended only to be helpful to the gentleman and to his partner or husband, I don't know their circumstances. It had nothing to do with interrupting proceedings. I offered to try to be some help and assistance, and I do regret that it was misinterpreted as being some kind of a negative or hostile action when that was the last thing I intended.
Thank you so much. I don't want to belabor this, but I don't know the sexual orientation of anyone that was in front of us. From what I remember, I think they were all single applicants, so I have no idea, and that does not factor in my decision at all. I don't know if someone else knows what these couples look like, what the families look like, if these are even couples, but I know for myself that did not factor into any of my decisions tonight. Councilman Urban?
Just to say that we established that the pool issue was not a variance, it was within the realm of the development, but every variance application is unique by the nature of the variance application. So we would be committing an error to just say, well, 2 out of 3 pass, so 3 out of 3 must pass as well. It's not at all how the undertaking of this goes. And so that's all I want to say is that every single variance application is considered as its own unique application and does not take into account any other application. That is the nature of the variance process.
Thank you so much. Any other comments for good and welfare? Mr. Pulliam, I'll recognize you. But 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so back to the professionality. If we're going to time for 3 minutes, it'd be great to have a clock somewhere posted. So that's
That's a good
not used
idea.
arbitrarily, but
That's a
actually
good
throughout the
idea.
entire duration to, again, try to truncate these meetings so they're not hours and hours long. So I would really appreciate, if that could be implemented, very simple thing, versus, again, ad hoc against LGBTQ members within this community. The other point I'd like to make, maybe you don't know the orientation of the other people, but we've stood up here representing ourselves as a couple, multiple times saying that we're spouses, what we're planning to do with our family and our private property. And we have, for better or worse, who knows, outed ourselves to that fact. So that is known and established within all the council people here. Whether that factored into the decision, it's our personal belief that it has, based on the evidence tonight of 3 being approved and then ours being the only one not approved, when you have 2 gay men up here standing advocating for themselves and being shut down and not treated as equal or with equality like other members within this community that we live in. It is extremely disheartening to see. And it's disheartening to see that the council people do not have any reflection around that as well.
Mr. Pulliam, do you know that the village of El Portal is historically, or I don't know because I happen to know this when I started telling my coworkers 10 years ago that I was buying an El Portal, and they were like, oh yeah, there's a lot of gay couples live over there. I don't care, and I don't give a damn about whoever said anything. I don't have to tell you here whether I have 10 or 5 or 1 or my sister or my brother are gay or not. That has nothing to do, and this is the most bizarre thing that I've ever heard in here. So that has nothing to do with your sexual orientation, whether you're presenting yourself as a gay couple or as a single or as a brother and friends, to my knowledge, and to my, or influencing my decisions on anything, okay? You can be my friend, you can go to my house and have fun and have a drink. I have no problem with that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Perrella. Council.
We're not,
Can you
not from the floor.
Could you not scream out from the
So-
audience?
So I'm the only member of this council that's not a minority, okay? That is one of, I'll tell you this. So Dr. Lightfoot Ward and I are friends. People who look like her cross the street when they see me coming, and I understand why. I understand that an elderly black woman has had horrific experiences with people who look exactly like me. So I understand it when I'm walking down the street and an elderly black woman does not respond positively. I totally understand that. So in that same regard, I understand the costume I wear in this world, specifically as a straight, white, educated man. And so that is why I personally felt it necessary to say anything. To be perfectly honest, outside of that, I wouldn't have felt it appropriate really to address those comments at all. I'm just aware and conscious of the fact that my presence sometimes is upsetting to different people. And so, I mean, I just don't know what else to say other than the fact that, you know, I would feel that those comments were against me singularly because I essentially represent the class of people who have historically been with the most egregious behavior towards all manner of minority groups. So that is my comment to those remarks.
Thank you so much. Do I have any other comments for good and welfare? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move us to subsection H, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, I will adjourn the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 9th at 9:58 p.m.